The boy awoke, choking and submerged within a toilet bowl. His name was Ho Kang. After countless years of war, he ultimately found his way back to Earth, only to discover it too had fallen to the claws of monsters. Still carrying within him the overwhelming might of a monster himself, Kang was unchanged. His eyes were extraordinary, capable of revealing the truth beneath any surface. Otto show his prowess. These days, his pleasure lies in tracking the fiercest beasts and transforming them into. Cassian had been reborn within the persona of a young man doomed to infamy as the ultimate antagonist. Gazing upon his reflection, he recognized that music the face was unfamiliar. Still, he harbored a force even more perilous than before. The broadcaster relays that monsters of the fourth rank are upon them, and a hunter is already being dispatched to intervene. Yet before the broadcast concludes, the device is obliterated and a horde of bizarre beasts set about demolishing the city. A hunter launches himself toward the monstrous horde, then notices their numbers, several of them, each inflating their chests in unison. One abruptly sets loose. In the Lampas office's music over at the Washington branch, 2, Schiller, designated as an S-rank mage of light, inquired whether Cassian was drifting toward villainy. Channeling his violet energy, he flings it upward into the heavens with powerful urgency. He harbored a force even more perilous. Tupin questioned if he felt guilt for disregarding the operation and operating solo. Ralph managed to flee, resulting in the public turning their backs on their cause. Cassian insisted he had secured the hostages, while Tupin reminded him to exercise greater caution next time. After all, adherence to protecting the hostages is the most fundamental rule of all. The main character asserted he truly believed he was capable of safely retrieving them. Tupin went on to say that if he continues to claim the title of hero, he must fulfill its moral expectations with careful thought and composed reasoning. Conviction doesn't create truth. Tupin mused his actions closely resembled those of an evildoer, making Cassian close his eye in contemplation. Tupin put him on notice, warning that probation would follow, and Cassian well knew the cost of further defiance. Stepping outside, Cassian grumbled that she truly earned the moniker Witch Music of the Iron Spire. He pondered how she and Jeff managed to create a close bond. Meanwhile, he sought an escape from this environment. His companion Jeff called at that moment. Cassian inquired about the reason. Surprised, he noted his confusion about the music place, mentioning that Rhodes happened to be in Greece. Within the bustling Rhodes International Airport, located somewhere in the music metropolis, Cassian enjoyed a coffee, remarking that, thanks to Jeff, he had a chance to experience this grand locale. He reflected on how much time had slipped away since they last reunited. It might well have been half a year, prompting him to drift into memory. Back in an earlier time at the HC orphanage, Cassian watched, spellbound, as simple clay toys came to life, asking in wonder if they truly were alive, to which Jeff responded, "No, they imitate life under my control." Cassian wondered aloud if Jeff aspired to join the ranks of heroes broadcasted on television, bringing justice to wrongdoers. Jeff hesitantly replied he remained uncertain. His gift seemed unremarkable. The central figure reflects that his unique abilities were honestly quite extraordinary. He ponders whether those days were 2 years in the past, after his relocation for adoption in America. It was a tranquil chapter in his existence. He drains his coffee cup. With the minutes slipping by, the cafe grows emptier. Glancing at his phone, he remarks on his own tardiness. He notices a call hasn't come through, musing about what might have occurred. Suddenly, Jeff materializes behind him, voice calling out his name. Startled, the protagonist turns to see his wounded friend face to face. He demands to know what transpired, asking if he engaged in a battle against a villain. Jeff confides that summoning him here was a mistake. Cassian, confused, asks for clarity. The fair-haired man urges him to take this necklace, but Cassian protests, insisting there are bigger priorities right now. Jeff is gravely injured, though he insists he is all right, only to cough up a copious amount of blood seconds later. Cassian immediately registers this grim sign. Jeff cautions there's no time for explanations. Cassian must escape quickly or risk sharing in his peril. Cassian implores him to hold on. Planning to call an ambulance, Cassian suddenly detects another presence. He wonders about the figure brandishing a sword. Jeff forcefully pushes him aside. As Jeff spins to face the danger, the dark-clad attacker approaches, striking with such precision that Jeff's head is instantly separated from his body in a single move. Cassian, frozen by horror, witnesses a gruesome spray of blood. He cries out for his friend as Jeff's head tumbles down, then knees buckling he desperately calls for him music, but the assassin nimbly leaps onto a nearby rooftop. Gnashing his teeth in defiance music, the protagonist shouts after the fleeing killer. The pursuit rages on until they find themselves by the seaside. Gasping atop the rocks, Cassian interrogates the culprit, wondering if there's some personal vendetta or if he's merely fulfilling a client's order, though he realizes such questions are futile now. Cassian summons his fiery gift and warns that he'll scorch the assassin himself. The foe remarks that Cassian's manners haven't improved, startling the hero by revealing recognition. The assailant is none other than Jack Called, an elite S-rank knight. Cassian, aghast, demands to know how Jack could visit such a fate upon Jeff. Jack coldly replies he dealt with a traitor within their ranks. Incredulous, the protagonist questions the accusation when a woman's voice from behind confirms the story: Jeff had taken another member's life. Lara, a distinguished S-rank ice sorceress, asserts they not only have witnesses but also solid proof, all verified by their organization's senior members. Jack gravely advises Cassian that he too now stands among the suspected traitors. Music Jack insists that Cassian reveal every detail about his discussions with Jeff, eyes glinting with icy resolve. Music Cassian rapidly weighs his options, resignedly admitting he is cornered with no escape. He then remarks that throughout Jeff's years as a valiant hero, he never harmed a soul. Lara cautions him. Besides themselves, two more exceptional heroes are nearby, so she implores him to proceed with care. Jack adds with grave insistence that if Cassian truly sees himself as a hero, he must judge this matter impartially, for this is his final ultimatum. A wide grin appears on Cassian's face as he declares that the observation couldn't be more accurate. Perhaps he ought to embody the composed, clear-headed hero, but preserving his own life comes first. With that, he plunges ahead, his fists ablaze with burning music. Jack reacts swiftly, unsheathing his blade in an instant. As Cassian nears, he tries a flurry of swings, but Cassian, ready in a battle pose, drives his fist straight into Jack's chest. Music Jack springs backward, summoning energy into his sword and materializing spectral katanas to launch a retaliatory assault. Music Meanwhile, Lara stands poised, channeling her power into an icy blast. Cassian shouts daringly, inviting them to unleash everything they've got. Together they strike, yet their onslaught is turned aside as the hero twists and wards off their attacks. Music surges forward before something abruptly pierces his abdomen, driving Cassian to the ground. He speculates that perhaps a marksman lurks among the fellow champions. Lara urges Cassian to yield, warning that continued defiance will make his head their next target. However, he summons another flicker of flame, replying caustically for them to disappear. Jack reacts at once, only to see Cassian toss a burning brand his way, challenging, "Take this." That's the fabled hellfire engulfing both elite warriors. Cassian makes a hasty escape, internally grumbling, "This is miserable. I'll get back at those guys another time." He makes for the river, but fatefully, a bullet finds his heart mid-leap. Suddenly, the hero feels strength failing him, whispering, "Blast it all." Dragged beneath the waves, Cassian broods over how swiftly his life has unraveled. All he'd wanted was his shot at vengeance. The necklace Jeff bestowed upon him starts to shine. Elsewhere, inside a restroom, a group of students open the tap, muttering complaints about the irritation. They grumble that the poor guy in the stall seems to have stopped breathing entirely. Worried that he might actually be dead, they're about to bolt, until the body takes a gasping breath. Cassian sluggishly rouses, pushing himself upright from the water's edge. Air rushes in as he tries to regather himself, mind racing with questions as the pendant continues its radiant glow. This body isn't his own, confusion swells as he searches for meaning. He plummeted down a cliff only to awaken here. But aside from this mystery, there's something unfamiliar in his own voice. Catching his reflection in a mirror, a baffled Cassian freezes. Music wonders aloud if this unfamiliar face could truly be his. none of it makes sense. He demands some reason as to why he's become some handsome youth and what happened to his former self. It must be some bizarre dream, though. Running his fingers through wet hair, the boy bitterly thinks this is utter nonsense. But the illusion is shatteringly real. Helplessly searching for answers, Cassian's thoughts are interrupted by a sudden searing pain that forces a torrent of memories upon him. These belong to a Korean named Kwon Kang-woo. Racked by confusion, Cassian asks how such an impossible thing happened, yet in this moment a mysterious voice announces his awakening. Turning toward the unexpected sound, the protagonist music calls out, "Who are you?" The necklace starts to pulse with a shadowy force taking shape in front of him as it reveals its identity, Moros, a magnificent spirit hailing from an ancient epoch. Music Kang-woo is startled, demanding to know what manner of entity has emerged from the necklace. Yet Moros simply states its name once again but insists, Music sensing the surge of questions he has and invites him to seek answers. In another corner, Kang-woo recaps Moros' proclamation that he rescued him from darkness itself. Moros confesses to numerous past failures. It compliments his command of Korean, prompting Cassian to mention his history of living in Korea, releasing a heavy breath as he reflects, "Heavens, Music, my life ended and now I have returned anew." He reflects, attempting to comprehend how such events could possibly be rational. Moros wonders aloud whether Jeff was the one who entrusted it to him, for its purpose was his safeguarding. Cassian ponders that thought, recalling that Jeff mentioned something along those lines at the time. Music drawing a deep breath, the young man questions what Jeff was truly seeking. He had called it a piece from a mythic blade. Moros clarifies it is the mark of the Sword of Annihilation. Such a sword was crafted eons ago, in the searing turmoil of the mythic era's wars. Cassian music wonders aloud how such knowledge could endure the cradle of centuries past. Moros asserts his stature as a magnificent spirit, suggesting he heed this tale. Annoyance flickers across Kang-woo's face. He challenges Moros, doubting his words, and Moros instructs him to check his cell phone. Doubt gnaws at Kang-woo yet again regarding any claim of self-sacrifice, but his anger flares as he observes something shocking. He reels from the reports. Music breaking news insists Cassian has perished, while Jeff lost his life in a final struggle against him. Aghast, Kang-woo wonders aloud if he is actually being accused of taking Jeff's life. His hand trembles, clenching the phone, and he mutters that this is absolute nonsense, twisted far from the truth. Kang-woo's jaw tightens as he grits his teeth. Fury boiling, he shouts that Lampas's people would dare to set him up. Far from sheltering the blameless, they simply frame him for all blame. Moros urges Cassian to find his composure, for in his current state the protagonist's music hair transforms. His gaze now glows with two distinct hues. Questions swirl in his mind about such betrayal. As raw energy rushes forth, his fingers morph into claws. Instantly, Music Kang-woo becomes aware, questioning what is overtaking him. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the school halls, a band of troublemakers muse about the tardiness of that stubborn guy, supposing his return must be imminent. A music stout child dashes in their direction. The one with a mop of purple remarks on the ungainly sight of the chubby boy sprinting, and his blonde friend scornfully calls it pitiful. They interrogate whether he investigated, and the hefty child assures them he did. He claims the bathroom was empty. The intellectual of the group presses, demanding if the check was thorough, asking after the police or paramedics as well. Yet again, the stout kid replies that he spotted none such. The troublemakers then question the absurdity of the situation, recalling they declared that the other guy must have perished since he'd ceased to breathe. Privately, the bespectacled youth affirms to himself that the boy truly had stopped breathing before, yet the violet-haired delinquent comments, accompanied by music, that he might as well go now. The fair-haired youth shouts that this ordeal nearly gave him a heart attack and accuses the other of blowing things out of proportion. Then the one with violet tresses intervenes, insisting they're done with this. All is well, for no one ended up dead. The blonde asks what's to become of him now. Their leader turns the question back, wanting to know his opinion, vowing to hunt down that wretch and put an end to him once more. Our main character dashes up to the rooftop, where Moros inquires if it's simply an effort to remain unseen. Cassian showed insight in this choice, but the protagonist retorts in frustration. admitting his own responsibility for the mess and demanding Moros explain why he is now cast as the villain. Moros laments his fiery mood and clarifies, by returning from the dead against nature's law, the very threads of destiny were thrown off balance. Music in the original design, the soul inhabiting this body was fated to survive and grow into a threat at the level of a catastrophe-class villain. Cassian interrupts, fixating on the phrase catastrophe music class, realizing he has taken on this cursed fate as his own. Moros affirms it, prompting the protagonistic hero to burst into laughter at the incredible irony. He, once a first-class hero, is doomed to become a villain of the highest menace. Consumed by a mix of anger and disbelief, he strikes the wall, voicing his distaste for this villainous role. Kang Woo spends several music contemplative moments, his hands covering his face. Yet Moro insists that he needs to keep living and says Jeff would have urged him to do the same. Before their fateful encounter, Jeff confided in him his regret for involving him in this whole affair. Aware that his days were numbered, yet he never plotted to secure his own continuance. Rather, he placed his hope for survival entirely in Kang Woo's hands, bestowing his sole future upon him. Thus, Kang Woo must not render Jeff's decision meaningless. Beyond that, Moros calls out to him and urges the composure that comes with serenity. Kang Woo, exasperated, grumbles about the burdens of following instructions, but Moros tells him it's vital to regain a calm mind if he wishes to return to human form. Yielding, Kang Woo resolves to do so. Some minutes later, he calls for Moros, who responds with his name. Still, Kang Woo presses for an answer. He demands to know what entity he has become. Moros wonders at his curiosity, and the protagonist insists, explaining that anyone who possesses the power to breathe life back into him is worth learning about. Yet Moros declares that all shall be revealed, but only after he obtains the Annihilation Sword. Kang Woo speculates that perhaps the fabled Destroyer Sword holds the key to Jeff's murder. Moros replies that's likely, but at that moment, someone in the distance derides the protagonist as a music loser. Their approach is marked by laughter, clearly entertained by the unfolding scene. With a relieved tone, the one with purple hair remarks that he's happy the protagonist survived over in the primary academic building. Down the corridor, the girls gaze in awe. For them, it's the first time witnessing someone of his striking beauty. He is Kim Woo-chan, apprentice of the warrior hero class. Moving along with tranquil steps, the young man is interrupted as his phone starts ringing. He accepts the call, inquiring what is needed from Sunbi Lee De-wong. Their discussion takes off, until Kang Woo-chan notices something unusual through the window. He quietly surveys the circumstances, mentioning he'll return his son's call shortly. The main character music stands defiantly before the trio of troublemakers. Cassian begins assessing what's unfolding, recalling the identities of these young men. Moros assures him not to be concerned, for none but him can perceive his presence. The one with the blonde hair scoffs, at a loss for words because every time he remembers how much worry this caused him, but the ringleader insists Kang Woo is more lost than ever. If he survived, he should have immediately reported in, since no one authorized him to sneak inside and conceal himself. Yet Kang Woo merely asks if he's finished barking his words. At this moment, he's brimming with irritation. Ultimately, Kang Woo has no wish to brutalize kids, but he concludes they are due for a thorough lesson. Moros cautions him, even if these scoundrels aren't transformed, their bodies possess unnatural power beyond that of ordinary people. If he's not careful, he might cross the line and accidentally end their lives. Kang Woo affirms he understands that perfectly. The blonde man slides his hands into his pockets and saunters closer, demanding to know what Kang Woo keeps mumbling about. Is it a result of being beaten senseless? Kang Woo stares him down without wavering, a gesture that only serves to aggravate the delinquent further. The delinquent moves forward to hit him, questioning just where Kang Woo dares look. Yet, as a response, the bully finds himself struck resoundingly in the face. With a single, decisive punch, Kang Woo renders the blonde unconscious. The friends of the fallen linger in stunned silence, while their challenger holds his battle-ready pose, unmoved. Instantly, the blonde crumples to the floor. The purple-haired boy exclaims internally, startled, wondering what on earth just occurred and what that weakling has just performed. Nevertheless, the bespectacled youth charges forth, screaming for Kang Woo's imminent downfall. With indifference, the hero fixes his gaze upon the aggressor, darting rapidly in his direction. He parries the swing of the bat with his forearm and strikes back hard, the blow easily flooring yet another foe. In disbelief, the purple-haired one's cigarette tumbles from his lips. Realizing that two friends have been toppled with a punch each, Kang Woo fixes the remaining thug with a searching stare music, wondering aloud if he's ever felt remorse for tormenting others. And why hasn't he offered a response to his query? But the group's chief simply contorts his mouth into a sly grin, tossing back the question of guilt, claiming he's weary of watching a loser stand tall. He asserts Kang Woo thinks himself powerful just because he dispatched the less competent, but Kang Woo merely observes that this one doesn't feel a trace of contrition. In that case, he just may need to be knocked around, perhaps then a spark of feeling will finally touch him. The rooftop tableau gradually reveals itself. Kang Woo rushes headlong at his challenger. The lavender-haired adversary is taken aback by the sudden assault, hastily dropping into a defensive pose. At once he closes the distance to engage, but Cassian glides away from his fist, slipping under it effortlessly. In one fluid motion, he delivers a swift uppercut to the troublemaker's chin, making it appear almost effortless. As his foe begins to topple backwards, the lead character surges forward again, aiming another precise attack. This time his target is the bully's abdomen. The blow leaves him coughing blood and collapsing to his knees from that single strike. Cassian examines him icily, inquiring if guilt has touched him yet. The troublemaker retorts angrily, telling him to get lost. The protagonist warns that he has exercised restraint, but perhaps that mercy was wasted, and considers maybe it's necessary to rough him up further. Such words send a surge of terror through the delinquent. Wu Chan steps out onto the rooftop, asking if perhaps that's sufficient. Autumn leaves flutter towards the hero in training. Instantly, the troublemaker shakes in fright at the sight of him. Kang Woo demands the newcomer's identity and criticizes him for meddling in their affair. Wu Chan counters, challenging what there is to gain from vanquishing an opponent so clearly outmatched. The bully's pride is quickly wounded by these words. Enraged, he spits out an insult while grinding his teeth, then hurls himself at the protagonist for another attack, but Kang Woo simply twists on his heel, sending the delinquent sprawling with a single kick. The troublemaker is knocked clear across the rooftop. Wu Chan catches him by the shoulder, again saying there's no need for more, but is greeted by the protagonist's frosty gaze, which causes the hero to take notice. Kang Woo tries to land an elbow, only to be taken aback when his strike is unexpectedly stopped. He aims another straight punch, but the trainee hero evades him. A sudden realization dawns on Kang Woo. Yuen quickly pivots, lashing out with a high kick which the protagonist dodges by ducking beneath its arc. He mentally notes the other's remarkable swiftness. Just then, Moros calls Cassian's name, warning that his foe is a hero, cautioning that a battle in his current state would be foolish. Wu Chan presses in with a swift punch, moving with decisiveness. Although Kang Woo slips aside, bright droplets of blood spray from his face. Moments later, both fighters stand on the rooftop once again, squaring off, each poised in defensive postures. Kang Woo glares icily, questioning whether this opponent truly deserves the mantle of hero. Wu Chan thoughtfully surveys the scenario, proposing they end things since nothing useful could come from dragging out the fight. The main character finds himself unexpectedly caught off guard by this. The aspiring hero extends a bandage, mentioning that his adversary's face is wounded. Tension lingers in their mutual gaze, yet Kang Woo snatches the bandage and wordlessly turning away leaves everyone else behind. Wu Chan observes his departure, mulling over how the fight was 3 against 1 and realizing he'd never noticed someone like him at school before. Glancing downward, he suddenly spots his own wounded arm. Elsewhere, within the ambient glow of a PC cafe, Music Cassian discovers he's unable to reach the Lampus website. It turns out his membership ID is no longer valid. He had suspected this would occur eventually, yet it still frustrates him immensely. Sometime after, elsewhere in the Music City, Cassian hurriedly addresses Moros, inquiring how he identified Wu Chan as a hero. Moros clarifies by asking if he is speaking of the man atop the rooftop. When you touched him, I could sense immediately upon your contact, he explains. Noting the usefulness of this talent, Cassian comments, though Moros dismissively says it is nothing remarkable. Moros goes on to say that should Cassian utilize the eye of appraisal, he could gain even deeper insights. Cassian wants to know where this information comes from, Moros reveals he is an enlightened soul delving into the world's secrets, then suggests Cassian might consider adopting the path of a villain. Cassian pauses to contemplate this for a while. Moros can easily perceive Cassian's reluctance, which Cassian admits, although he nonetheless decides to give it a try. Trusting solely in his villainous abilities, he asks what steps are required. Moros describes it as akin to surrendering oneself to overwhelming impulses and feelings. Music: the main character muses aloud that such a process seems convoluted. The soul counters that for Cassian, anger seems to activate it. He echoes, anger, lost in thought. He recalls in vivid fragments all that unfolded with himself and Jeff. Suddenly, he erupts in a tempestuous scream, vowing to bring down every music wretch connected to Lampus. Moros inquires what exactly he's trying to accomplish. Cassian tells him he's stoking his rage, but Moros informs him that shouting isn't necessary. Moros instructs him to simply visualize it internally. The protagonist protests, "You could have told me that earlier." Elsewhere, seated in a car, a man shares intelligence. The villain called Blaster is a madman fascinated by destruction, delighting in his own chaos. Report has it, he infiltrated the nation covertly through Insin Port and surfaced earlier today in G-Dam's music district. Wu Chan points out that Blaster has already harmed 102 people, and that number should not be allowed to grow. His superior, Li De-Wong, rated as a B-rank knight, breaks a piece of bread. He notes music that even if Blaster's combat prowess is unremarkable, his knack for assembling explosives remains a pressing danger. Adding that Blaster is thoroughly unstable, Wu Chan asserts, the sole fate fitting a villain is extinction. They're simply antisocial offenders ruled by unchecked appetites and moods warranting eradication before they can wreak havoc, he says. Duong comments that Wu Chan sounds rather intense when discussing villains. Wu Chan replies that the hero's calling is to pursue justice. Music: says he merely tells what has to be done, whereupon Dong grins, assuring him he'll shoulder concerns over justice. Music: the young apprentice is to concentrate solely on his support. Wu Chan lingers, silently watching. Meanwhile, back in the familiar alley, a holographic panel materializes before Cassian. Moros indicates this is the status window visible through the eye of appraisal. The protagonist observes that it strikingly resembles a scene from a video game. He inquires about the shadow blade and self-healing, and Moros explains these are currently the only music abilities at his disposal. Because of self-healing, the wound on his face is rapidly repairing itself. Cassian wonders aloud if his arms and legs would regrow if lost. Moros assures him they probably would, the only limitation is the mana he possesses. As for his hidden powers, those are yet to be awakened and they'll appear as he gains strength. Cassian laments his paltry 300 mana points, complaining that he once wielded over 1,500 as a hero. That's rather unimpressive for a catastrophe class character. Moros clarifies that the class signifies his latent potential, reminding Cassian of the proverb about an unrefined diamond. His fate, whether he remains unremarkable or shines brightly, rests on his efforts. The protagonist music asks if he might use the ability on someone else. Moros says yes, though it comes with a 3 times a day restriction. Music: he points out that after Cassian used the skill on Jeff, he was drained and slept for hours. Cassian contemplates what that might signify. Moros proposes they put his main abilities to the test. Unsure of the protocol, the protagonist asks if he ought to announce the ability's name, as in a video game. Moros advises him to simply imagine the shadow blade in his thoughts. Like this, Cassian asks as he swipes his claw, a blade instantly takes shape on the ground. Startled that it worked, he notes the success, catching Moros by surprise. The protagonist observes he can truly feel what emerges from the shadow. Despite being of shadow, it's as keen as a blade. Moros had believed Cassian would need an entire day to get the hang of his skills and never fathomed such immediate mastery. He wonders if Jeff sensed this unfulfilled promise within him all along. Cassian casually remarks the blade is resilient enough to block attacks. Music: Moros then suggests that Cassian, as a villain, should try making his own garments. Cassian responds that he's aware but it's no rush and he's comfortable for now. Your taste in attire is dreadful, Moros shoots back. Enough out of you, Cassian retorts. Music as dusk approaches and the sun dips below the horizon, Moros inquires about his destination. "I'm heading home," Cassian replies, which clearly astonishes the spectral being. He shares that Kang Woo's family is waiting for him. His parents aren't present anymore, but he shares a home with his older sister, his Nuna, who works in an office. Moro's music asks if Cassian intends to see her, and Cassian affirms this. He may be fated to become a catastrophe-grade villain, yet his affection for her is clear. Moro's music prods about whether guilt lingers. Cassian answers, "He perished because of me when that should never have happened." Suddenly, a detonation rends the silence. The protagonist whirls about, witnessing panicked crowds dashing away from the scene. He stands in shock. Music explosions shake a nearby building, frightened voices declare a villain is responsible, the incident flooding news feeds and social channels. Reports spread music that the assailant has taken a mother and child hostage. He's holding hostages, Cassian thinks, his eyes narrowing above toward the upper floors of the building. Moros can't conceal his astonishment. He calls for Cassian to stop, but the protagonist already speeds toward the commotion. Moros cautions him this is a genuine villain, leagues more dangerous than any delinquent they faced before. Their abilities are a world apart from ordinary mortals. Cassian makes his decision, "Then I'll walk the path of a villain." Moros cautions him that it's an unspoken code, villains rarely battle their own kind. As someone with a heroic past, this should be clear to him. Exceptions arise only when grudges or the urge to settle a personal score are involved. Choosing to intervene as a villain himself would mean invading another's territory. That choice would instantly earn him the hatred of villain society, even before facing Lampas. Cassian halts before the shattered remains of the structure. "That doesn't bother me," he responds. Taken aback, Moro's music is left speechless. He tries to reason, warning Cassian that acting out a sense of justice isn't ideal for a villain. Cassian insists it has nothing to do with heroism. "There are captives, a mother and her music child inside. If I were unaware, perhaps it'd be different, but now that I know, to ignore it would be simply wrong." Moros pauses, memories of Jeff's statements coming to mind. People call him reckless, quick-tempered, the kind to lose control, yet no one is softer, more humane than he is. "For that reason, I trust him." Moros thinks that's why Cassian was my choice for successor. Given all that, words fail him. Moros proclaims, "Transform now, Cassian, I'll stand with you." Deep within the blaze, a once cheerful toy store has become debris. Shattered playthings and ripped open boxes blanket the floor. A desperate mother pleads with Blaster, her voice trembling, "Please, I beg you, don't do this." The villain shapes a bomb from his abilities, referring to the boy as unfortunate, urging him not to shed tears, suggesting they're simply providing a spectacle everyone enjoys so there is no cause for weeping. He suggests the child say X and give a wide smile, much like his days working as a music C-rank villain, rigging the gas station 23 minutes prior. Wu Chan waits by the vehicle, inspecting his wounded arm after rolling up his sleeve, admitting he had let his guard slip, yet all is unchanged. He doesn't yet know the culprit behind the injury, but picking up the phone, he identifies himself and feels a flash of surprise. At the other end, De Wong responds, apologizing that work keeps him busy tonight but promises they'll catch up for food soon. He assures her she holds his affection alone and he's already on his way over, while Wu Chan tells her he'd just returned from the restroom. He announces that a mobilization order has come in. Blaster has surfaced in town. The villain asks if the boy has ever witnessed fireworks shimmering as 5 colors across the night, yet the child says he hasn't. Blaster voices his disbelief, saddened the boy has never beheld such splendor, a true misfortune, he laments. Yet he cheerfully promises that sadness isn't needed, for he'll offer a display far more breathtaking, the mother's form and spirit erupting with the radiant burst of the fireworks. A tingling exhilaration flourishes within him, too intense to name. He ponders his method. Perhaps start by the arms, then move to the legs, music, ensuring the head remains a treasure, meaning the chest and throat last. Sorrow shroud the room as suddenly, all light vanishes. The antagonist, though initially irritated, allows a sly smile to bloom as he remarks that visitors have arrived and assures them there's no reason for hesitation. Everyone is welcome here. He suggests there's truly no need to hide and urges the individual to step forward, utilizing whatever abilities he possesses. Music in a sudden burst, Cassian materializes behind the villain, bursting through the window in a shower of glass. Blaster twirls at lightning speed, yet finds only music, a determined fist greeting him, flinging him forcefully away. Smoke curls upward from the forceful blow. The music hero keeps his gaze as cold as ice while questioning the fate of the captives, and Moros replies both remain unharmed, though Cassian now bears an explosive device affixed to him. Its timers begin their countdown to detonation. A jolt of shock passes through every soul in the chamber. Without hesitation, Cassian darts away, sprinting from danger with all his might. Calm pervades the exterior moments before the structure erupts in a thunderous explosion, scattering debris in every direction. Bystanders anxiously murmur, wondering when authorities or champions will appear to help. The scene is left in shambles, laid to waste beyond previous calamities. Blaster remarks that the intruder entered brazenly, forsaking courtesy. Although he has no clue regarding the stranger's identity, he dismisses him as impulsive and uncivil. Truly, such a man could have lit up the night sky spectacularly. Nevertheless, the man's fate ended prematurely. Yet he reassures they are to inherit the spotlight now, dazzling the world tonight by means of the newcomer's music abilities. A glowing orb of energy starts forming, but he comes to a sudden halt. A spray of crimson stains the villain's features as a shadowy blade severs his hand. Music in panic, Blaster recoils, but the hero lunges from the rear, grabbing his shirt and driving him violently into the ground, leaving it broken beneath them. A fog of dust begins music to drift down, unveiling the aftermath. Blaster grumbles that such an outcome was inevitable and attempts his technique anew, but Cassian clasps his wrist tightly, retorting that he won't make the same mistake music a second time. Cassian then hurls insults, tightens his fist and smashes it into the villain's face, fracturing it. The entire structure quakes from the force as Cassian lays blow after blow without pause, reducing their surroundings to wreckage. Music, all he can think of is landing yet another hit. Moros desperately begins to call out Cassian's name. The unstoppable force within the hero music drives him wild, until a voice from the soul once more reaches out, longing to ground him. Suddenly, realization dawns, halting his frenzy. Moro insists he finally listened, and Cassian gradually grasps the violence he's committed, staring music with disbelief at his hand stained by blood. Moro observes that he could barely control his surge of rage, but is finally easing down. His feelings rampaged unchecked, swallowing his good sense entirely. Had he not come back to his senses, he would have lost himself completely, driven mad by nothing but the craving to satisfy personal appetites. Cassian finds the situation wretched music while clutching his eye, only to be seized by a sudden, stinging pain. Moros inquires if he is all right, mentioning the blast from earlier. Cassian assures him all is well, insisting they prioritize rescuing the captives. As he moves towards them standing guard, Cassian notices something off. The mother and her child cowered in terror before him. Some hours after, law enforcement showed up, gathering what remained of Blaster. De-Jong confirms that the two former hostages are unharmed. Although a full investigation will follow, for now, it appears to be a clash over territory among music criminal factions. Eyewitnesses say it was a villain, identity unknown. Wu Chan casts his eyes to a forgotten toy beneath him, reflecting that music abducting a child crosses every line. For such villains, a fate in hell was all that awaited them. Voices among the officers point out it was a villain who actually rescued the hostages. Many people were present to see it. Wu Chan cuts in with an apology for disturbing them, quietly instructing them that their conversation ought not to leave this room. Duong then calls the young officer over, telling him to secure the security tape from the main floor's staff area where he intends to head momentarily. The trainee nods in understanding, gazes at the stuffed bear and leaves it abandoned in another city corner. Cassian gazes upward, sorrow etched in his eyes, reliving the memory of the mother and her child wordlessly pleading with him for rescue. Music, he buries his face in his hands. Moros asks quietly if something is weighing on him, yet Cassian keeps his thoughts to himself before at last admitting that without his friend's intervention, madness like Blaster's would have consumed him. Moros agrees with this. Afterwards, he raises his gaze, believing he is indeed a villain in the end. In that moment, a new message lights up his phone screen. He begins to peruse its contents. Moros asks the sender's identity. Music and Cassian responds that it is Kang Woo's sister, telling him supper is ready and inviting him home to eat with her. The spirit asks if he intends to go, but at that moment, hunger rumbles in the hero's belly amid the ruined building aftermath of battle. Do Wong is left speechless as he watches the recording, unable to believe his eyes. Who could that possibly be? No matter how many times he plays it back, the villain is seen aiding the hostages. Music's suspicion dawns that perhaps it is all an elaborate prank. With worry, Wu Chan looks on from his own apartment block. Within Unit 701, Cassian stands before food set out and a music handwritten note. Taking it delicately, he reads instructions to warm the rice together with the stir-fry in the microwave, and that she too brought fresh fruit and stored it music in the refrigerator. This time, she cooked with her own hands, signing her note as the dearest sister in music all the world. Cassian's thoughts drift to his days as a lonely child in the orphanage, when a caretaker would admonish him for showing up late. There was no supper for kids who failed to make dinner on time, until, unexpectedly, a piece of bread was slipped under his nose. Cassian calls out to Jeff, and the boy encourages him to eat the food quickly and avoid being discovered by the director. Thus, our hero digs in with delight. He gazes at the note with tenderness, sets the meal upon the table, and lowers himself into a chair in the kitchen. Cassian scoops up a mouthful, tasting it, remarking on the wonderful flavor and how long it's been since anyone has prepared a dish for him. Music as a gesture of gratitude, he offers his thanks for the food. With the arrival of a new day, Cassian lies in bed as his alarm blares. He opens his eyes slowly, adjusting to the morning. Now awake, he gazes blankly at music the ceiling. In the bathroom, annoyance prickles at him. Standing at the sink, Music the young man brushes his teeth, reflecting bitterly that this self is unfamiliar, like playing a different person entirely. It hardly seems real to dwell inside the contours of another life. Though he hoped a decent music rest would soothe him, such renewal hasn't come. If only he had the power, he'd choose to return to earlier days. Moros greets Cassian with well wishes for the morning, but he dryly responds that there's nothing to celebrate, sliding on his sneakers. Music his sister comments, questioning if he's heading off to school, urging him not to leave without a word. This casual interaction with her feels oddly unfamiliar to Cassian. He contemplates confessing that he isn't truly her brother, but at that moment, Yuri interrupts, saying she nearly forgot something. She passes him the credit card they had spoken of earlier. Informing him she'll top up his allowance and urging him to use it thoughtfully, the protagonist internally questions the origin of the money. Clutching the card, memories resurface. A recent call to his sister. Hadn't he requested his next allowance ahead of time? Yuri reminds him it was only a week ago she gave him some. And Kang Woo recalls how, in truth, some troublemakers had extorted his money, although he'd told his sister the lie about misplacing his wallet. Yuri reassures him that's fine since he was polite about asking. Kang Woo expresses his gratitude. She adds that she'll arrange for a credit card he can use. Kang Woo weighs the meaning of that as Cassian realizes things make sense now. He offers words of thanks to Yuri, who tells him kindly to look after the card and wishes him a good day, though she pauses to say he appears different at present. She observes that his hairstyling has changed so thoroughly, he barely resembles himself. He explains that, instead of cutting, he merely styled his hair another way. With a knowing look, Yuri asks if there's a new romantic partnership, a girlfriend perhaps, and he just responds he's off to school. Eventually, at school, Music inside the first year, class 3, the students are abuzz, whispering about his changed appearance. Taken aback, a blonde student sporting a face bandage stands out, sharing in the surprise. Irritation boils within him, Music, and he fixes the curious girls with a sharp glance as they maintain their stares. With a scowl, he barks at them, questioning why they are watching him and whether they have something to say, silently cursing that troublesome kid. Suddenly, a hand lands on his shoulder, prompting him to spin around and ask what's wanted. Cassian materializes just behind him, giving the troublemaker quite a shock. The main character, accompanied by Music, inquires about his assigned seat. The nervous blonde student, voice shaking, points directly ahead. Unfazed, Cassian sets his backpack on the desk and calmly claims his spot. Moros questions amid the melody whether he doesn't notice the fierce gaze fixed upon him. All around, students trade rumors of a villain lurking in their area. Someone boasts of having witnessed the criminal brawl firsthand. Moro muses aloud that the conversation may in fact be centered on him. Music weaves through their chatter as the students grimly recount a terrifying event, a recent serial killer attack on a young girl from high school. Another recounts reading about it, how the perpetrator dismembered his victim and drained her blood according to the paper. They're certain the culprit was a villain named Driver, rumored to be the leader of Villezone over in the Gadam district. Cassian wonders if there truly exists a self-governing den for villains in melodic G-Dam. The students murmur that Driver had been engaged in suspect human experiments. May those fiends meet ruin, one spits bitterly, while Cassian merely gazes at his mobile screen. Beyond these walls in the city, a delinquent erupts into gleeful laughter, claiming the situation is pure comedy. The purple-haired figure warns Ju to mind his words, but the rebel replies with bravado, mocking him for putting on airs after a beating by an outsider. Not amused, the purple-haired youth insists he's not to be trifled with. Daegu, meanwhile, remains cool, snubbing his cigarette on the pavement. Pondering, he voices whether they ought to join forces and eliminate that troublesome fellow. Unable to simply stand by, the purple-haired boy produces an envelope, suggesting reward, promising the deal will be lucrative. Ju, his expression satisfied, music lingering, while far off, a bookish observer eyes the scene in silence. Quietly, the onlooker recognizes the boy as Kith Hoon's old acquaintance, yet feels a reluctance to involve himself in the unfolding affair. Ju places a friendly hand on Kyun's shoulder, assuring him that as companions, he'll attend to whatever's bothering him. He assures him, simply ask, will it be a destruction of property or settling the matter for good? The bell has rung, signaling the day's end when suddenly a voice halts the protagonist. Wu Chan blocks his way. Unacquainted, he admits as much, inquiring after his injury. Cassian coolly points at his bandaged wound, inviting the other to judge for himself. Moros cannot hide his startlement. He had been the one to place that bandage earlier. Under the haze of music he presses further, for what reason when the wound was already mended completely. Cassian explains with logic that a future encounter might arouse suspicion if things seemed unusual. Moros perceives that Cassian is strategizing ahead. So the lead character addresses Wu Chan, asking after his intentions. Perhaps he wants to reimburse medical expenses. Wu Chan falls quiet in contemplation. Eventually, Wu Chan proposes. Instead of money, maybe he could repay the kindness some other way. Cassian grins, declining the offer while Wu Chan requests to know his name. The protagonist formally announces himself as Quan Kang Wu. Wu Chan echoes the name privately. As he exits the school, Cassian remarks on the odd encounter. Moros wonders aloud if the hero's presence was disruptive, met with silence, assumes his guess correct. Cassian clarifies that the youth was none other than Wu Chan Kim, whose gift is pyrokinesis. Blessed with charisma and stature on par with a K-pop celebrity, he's a top-tier student who keeps his name clean and is widely admired as a talent to watch. Moros expresses stupefaction. Cassian explains, a quick online search reveals all. Moros muses at his good fortune, teasing if Cassian harbors a touch of envy. The main character responds that the young boy's aspiring idol is none other than the legendary S-rank hero Cassian Lee, who possesses abilities just like his own. Moros questions if he's the boy's inspiration. Cassian comments that a beacon of promise such as himself belongs in a prestigious academy. At that moment, Music the Spectre glances back. He quickly notices they're being pursued by the troublemakers. Persistent fools, he muses. One in the group inquires with the blonde about their situation. The blonde assures them they're trailing the target undetected and promises to keep updating them. Music on a different side of campus, Daegu asks what was said. Kyun reports they're on his trail, noting that even unruly sorts seem capable of keeping a promise. Music flicking his cigarette aside, Daegu wonders if they should go after them too and sets off with his gang in tow. In a forgotten corner of the city, Cassian strides steadily ahead, never looking behind. The blonde Music among them laments the strangeness of it all, speculating why the fool wandered into the area that leads to the domain of villains. Without warning, someone calls out his name. The blonde collapses, overcome with fear. Ju demands to know what happened, calling him a useless brat, but the blonde nervously insists it wasn't his intent. Kai-hyun insists on knowing where the scoundrel is, so the blonde music gestures to the side, only to discover the main character has disappeared. The others protest there's nothing in sight. About to explain, the blonde states he was there moments ago, but the scholarly one notes that he slipped into the nearby alley. Then let's find him before he escapes. Music one of them replies determinedly. The blonde pleads for patience, apprehensive because that direction leads to the villain's enclave. This is a disaster, he malcontents, hoping the group music would slow for him, but their hunt ends before a rundown hotel. Ju harshly questions where their quarry has gone, as they are at a standstill. Kithun asks if he's certain they went that way. The nerd insists, but is rewarded by the delinquent kicking his leg for presumed trickery. As pain doubles him over, Ju accuses him of making him look like a fool. At just that moment, music the protagonist's voice rings out, "Looking for me?" The group spins and, to their shock, finds Cassian standing there. He declares if they sought him, this is the spot they needed. All unfolds beneath the watchful eye of a camera set high above. The camera locks in, its lens focused on Cassian's features. Inside a surveillance room, a man hums idly while watching the protagonist on a display monitor. He scribbles observations, then leans back with his feet propped on the table. "It seems he's expecting company," he remarks. As the confrontation intensifies, Daegu notes the bold newcomer doesn't even act surprised, likely ignorant of what fate awaits. He then questions if Cassian is the one responsible for beating up Kai-hyun. With a chilling gaze, Cassian looks at them. Music Daegu, unimpressed, demands he pay attention, warning he has 3 seconds. He threatens that, unless he wishes to meet his end, he ought to show deference. As he clocks out the numbers 1, 2, Cassian remains impervious. His unflinching demeanor stuns even the angry gangsters. Music Oh, looking to get yourself hurt, are you? Ju scoffs, a sneer curled on his lips. Cassian, unfazed, invites him to try his luck. The troublemaker hesitates for a split second, yet before he can react, Cassian's 2 fingers snap toward his eyes. He collapses, wailing frantically and clutching desperately at his face. With a swift motion, Cassian seizes Ju's hair and crushes his head hard against the wall. Music the others are left speechless, astonished as Ju is rendered unconscious. His form collapses in a heap. "Why did you get so close, you absolute music fool?" Cassian murmurs. The next moment, Ju's portly cohort, seething with fury, lunges at Cassian, but the main character coolly sidesteps him, unruffled by the attack. Music the hefty guy throws another punch, but Cassian evades him again, almost indifferent. Frustrated, the assailant hurls another strike, yet Cassian simply positions himself at his back. When he spins around to face Cassian again, a quick sweep to his music shin drops him down instantly. Lying stunned, the defeated youth hears Cassian remark, "I figured I'd go gentle, but I see you all are pushing my patience." Without hesitation, he brings his heel down on the guy's groin. Cassian looks at the group, inquiring if they're just content spectating. At that instant, Ju hauls himself upright, calling his companions slow like molasses. Music he erupts in unhinged laughter, vying that Cassian has sealed his fate now. Cassian contemplates if perhaps he was too lenient earlier. Daegu shows his open palms in a Muay Thai pose, boasting of being the runner-up in the National High School League. Kai-hyun concludes the hopeless one's predicament has only worsened. His pair of friends are equally shaken. Cassian stands firm, music towards his adversary. In a memory, 2 senior students whisper that this should be a cinch. They claim Cassian's already stuck until Jack interjects to question what exactly their music doing. The pair explain the so-called halfwit was lagging slightly, and the newcomer was being courteous yet merely used as target practice. Yet Jack notices a detail: Cassian's defense is absorbing every blow. He asks why Cassian lacks safety gear and hears from Sunbae that the rookie supposedly doesn't require any. But Jack hadn't been speaking about Cassian's opponent at all. He meant John Cassian Lee, renowned as the freshest star of the Combat Academy, noted for being its youngest top graduate. A specialist in close-range fighting, he boasts no documented loss in any one-on-one contest. Sunbaes are stunned, realizing not only did he wield pyrokinesis, but was never a registered sorcerer. All at once, a rattling commotion bursts forth. Every sunbae pivots in surprise to see Cassian flattening John. The moment returns to present as Ju is slammed into the wall, forcefully knocked aside. Cassian merely keeps his ground. The remaining gangsters quake with dread. Ju feebly attempts to get up, but the main character music crushes his face in his open hand, pressing mercilessly. He considers inwardly how these pitiful pretend toughs lost all restraint merely for lacking anyone to keep them in check. Had their opponents been more formidable, these so-called delinquents wouldn't have dared to tussle at all. That remains the case for even those foolish ones. Had he possessed greater strength, Jeff and even Kang Woo might have been spared all that misfortune. Without question, he will rise to new heights, becoming unstoppable, instilling dread into the hearts of everyone around him. Kai-hyun, gripped by fear, urges them to leave immediately. The blonde youth spins around, proposing they escape, but is suddenly overtaken by terror and begins yelling when a villain swoops through the air above their confrontation. Driver music, with a deft flick, maneuvers his screwdriver, a B+ rank villain who commands machines. The crowd erupts, shouting the name Driver, though a grin remains set upon the villain's lips. With knees shaking, Kyoan is frozen by the arrival. He then desperately shouts for flight, sensing the grave chaos they are in. Daegu follows suit, pleading not to be abandoned. Cassian music fixes a frosty gaze on the villain. Driver replies with a small, mocking grin. Moros then calls to the main character, questioning the peculiar use of a screwdriver. Driver lands with a question, isn't his tool impressive? He slings music the screwdriver across his back, noting how he'd intended to intervene, yet from what he sees he may have misunderstood the scene. Cassian mentions he doesn't recall seeking assistance. The villain can only chuckle in response. Driver, only half amused, retorts that such aloofness isn't kindly meant music and asks if Cassian is even aware of his reputation. But the hero simply says he's the screwdriver man. The villain admits Cassian's impassive demeanor wounds his ego. Next, his screwdriver morphs into a menacing cannon, startling Cassian. Driver observes he came direct to the villain's domain, pointing out he must realize what now awaits. A shot fires forth, but only an array of floating flower petals spills out. Driver laughs that the odd attack was a joke, assuring that his next discharge won't be a simple jest. Cassian keeps a collected exterior, his face unreadable. Turning away, Cassian acts to leave and Driver calls out after him, left rooted and wondering if he's being flat-out dismissed. 40 minutes music later, as they return home, Moros mentions just how perilous that was. Beating the screwdriver-wielding foe isn't feasible now. By his estimations, his magical ability should not fall short, but Cassian abruptly diverts from their path. He music rests both palms on the brick wall, causing Moros some surprise. Moros remarks that the confrontation seemed to unsettle him. Broaching the subject of future training and facing that adversary again, Moros asks if Cassian could use the Eye of Wisdom to seek him out. This moment was an ideal chance to stand against a mightier foe. In his mind, Music Sam believed genuine battle, gambling one's existence, was the most effective teaching. For this reason, he couldn't let the opportunity vanish. Music, meanwhile, in the shadowy alley, Driver copies the hero's kick in curiosity over its execution. That youth style was far from conventional, piquing Driver's curiosity about his identity. Remarkably, he hadn't shown an ounce of fear. Though these high schoolers were unnerving, a presence closes in on Driver from behind. Driver spins and finds himself face to face with a transformed, advancing Cassian. Amazed, the villain watches as Cassian launches at him, raking with taloned hands. The villain is sent flying. Suddenly vigilant, Driver dodges as the protagonist forges raw darkness into claws which morph into slicing shadow blades. The villain music takes to the skies. Cassian observes that, as expected, this foe's skills impress. Driver, wielding his tool with craft, invokes his summon weapon ability to massify the screwdriver in his grasp. Moros warns there's danger because of the summon the weapon, and Driver grins, asking if Cassian anticipated this. The antagonist unleashes a surge, remarking that now it's his turn to repay the gesture. With a sly grin, the villain aims his conductor beam, which thunders toward its target at breakneck speed. An eruption follows at the spot of impact. Distant villains gawk at the spectacle, murmuring in bewilderment over what just occurred. Driver music is left baffled since the hero still stands, having skillfully repelled the offensive with his ominous blade. Moros announces his mana hovers above 1,000. This implies his power now triples their own, but Cassian simply scrutinizes. A lingering soul questions him, yet the protagonist music offers no response, only noting this was shaping up to be quite an amusing duel. Moros wonders aloud if he feels certain about such a claim. Driver observes that his defense was impressive, pondering whether he himself hadn't been too lenient. Immediately he thrusts ahead once more, weapon screwdriver in midst. Cassian anticipates and eludes the attack by vaulting and slipping past with agility. While airborne, Driver approaches anew, launching flurries of slashes, each one the protagonist deftly sidesteps. Driver music muses, this fellow, he shouldn't be this capable. It's as though he foresees each motion. Who is this man? If his skills are so great, how have I not heard his name? Uneasy, he tries yet another attack while considering if this same stranger had taken down Blaster. Yet once more his blow meets only the hero's claws, stalling its advance. Driver music widens his eyes as his implement starts to shatter. Simultaneously, the protagonist is taken aback when Driver's pupils ignite in crimson and he fires a ray at his foe. Instantly, Cassie trips him, sending the adversary sprawling. Driver thinks with a hint of frustration, music unfortunate, while struggling upright, loudly proclaiming his combat prowess. With determination rekindled, he withdraws, wielding his trusty tool, then prepares to strike with the aid of his mechanical hand. The mechanical limb flies at the protagonist, but with a sweep of his shadowed hand, Cassian conjures dozens of daggers formed from darkness. They puncture and slash the robotic arm. Driver stands taken aback, and before he can recover, the protagonist materializes above and hurls him aside with a swift punch. The villain acknowledges internally that his adversary isn't one to underestimate. There's an unfamiliar edge in his battle stance. It seems impossible he fights so well unless formally schooled in the art. At that moment his allies emerge, calling out, "So, music, here you are." They begin to teleport toward Driver to assist. On his left appears Crow, ranked A, to the right stands B-ranked Red-Eye. Yet another figure steps up behind the protagonist. B-rank Blackhand greets him, jesting about his battered appearance and wondering if he hadn't let his guard down. Now encircled by the foes, Cassian simply flashes a grin, scoffing if he had called for help after faltering one-on-one. Crow questions the phrase being defeated, while Driver retorts it's untrue, that he remains undefeated. One of his allies teases, insisting he actually was bested. Blackhand mentally ponders Driver's fall, bewildered as to how such a seasoned fighter was overcome by a supposed novice. The antagonist wants to know why he chose to pick a fight with him to begin with. Cassian responds that he seeks to challenge someone powerful, and besides, he cannot simply allow a murderer to continue senselessly slaying everyone encountered. Driver finds this rationale perplexing. He questions, punctuated by a melody, whether the topic concerns the notorious serial killer, to which Crow replies that there was no harm in removing the killer's head. Driver inquires if they suspect him of being the culprit, asserting he was wrongly blamed and that surely people wouldn't believe malicious gossip. Blackhand wonders what gives him the nerve to stand so boldly before Driver, especially since he contemplates ending his life right now. Driver quickly clarifies he is not the sought-after killer. The protagonist requests proof, but he confesses he has none. Abruptly, a sharp pain throbs in the protagonist's head to the word of music. Blackhand considers this moment an opportunity, imagining he's now able to break him. He advances wielding fists of fury, activating the gauntlets of perdition against the muted rhythm. He mentally damns the protagonist, hoping to send him to oblivion. Slamming down, he misses as Cassian evades, remarking on the unsportsmanlike move, music underscoring Blackhand's astonishment. The protagonist implies that the likes of Blackhand are infamous for attacking when backs are turned. Undeterred, Blackhand tries a follow-up attack, but his foe simply vanishes, declaring this is the remedy for fools such as him, all to the melody's backdrop. Cassian lands a clean blow using his claw. Crow, Red-Eye, and Driver reel from what they witness amid the sound, while Blackhand is launched backwards. As the archer hurries over, Driver voices admiration at the spectacle, and Red-Eye reflects that the youth has just bested the third strongest villain in their quarter. Moros inquires if the protagonist is unharmed. Driver observes that his head's in a whirl and he's struck with dizziness. Analyzing through specialized lenses, he determines with music flowing that it's because his energy remained below 300 but rose wildly in little time. Crow presses if that's the extent of his strength, and Red Eye suspects he's from the dank classification. Sotto voce, he questions how a D rank could accomplish such a feat. Blackhand's own magic surpasses what's expected even of a B rank, and still wonders how Cassian felled him in a single stroke. Yet Driver urges calm. On extraordinary occasions a B rank might overcome even an A rank. Victory isn't decided by strength alone. Cassian possesses notable brawn and remarkable reactions, with combat techniques that outweigh his designated rank, setting him apart as a rare specimen. To convey it through an engineer's eyes, veiled in music, he seems the very model of a streamlined, expertly crafted device. Subsequently, Driver retrieves a crystal from his equipment, querying if Cassian recognizes its nature. Cassian's eyes widen at the sight of this enchanted gem. Driver elaborates that villains may intensify their abilities via rigorous practice, but also by assimilating these shimmering crystals, his words flying alongside melody as he tosses it toward Cassian. He then instructs Cassian to consume it. The protagonist wonders about the motive behind the offer. Driver expresses a desire to strike a bargain, but Cassian denies interest. The antihero insists, driven by a distaste for injustice and speaking of an indiscriminate murderer, that he seeks Cassian's aid in apprehending the villain in his stead. Music as a reward for sealing their agreement, he presented him with the crystal, leaving him free to accept or decline the offering. According to Cassian, he insists that he is certainly not the culprit. The Driver admits it's accurate, expressing grievance, and when the protagonist wonders why he doesn't hunt down the real wrongdoer himself, the Driver remarks that each person harbors secrets they cannot reveal. The pair locks eyes in an intense, silent standoff. Cassian heads home soon after, contemplating whether the intention was for him to consume the gift. Music Moros provides an explanation. Crystals come in two types: Jinn crystals found in nature and magic crystals which are artifices. It's unfortunate that it isn't a Jinn music crystal, but even this variant should boost his magical abilities. Cassian replies he was already aware of this. Moros cautions him to only consume it while in his villain form. Cassian turns the crystal over in his human palms, then tries with his more monstrous claws. He queries whether Moros is certain it's truly a magic crystal, and Moros assures him it is. Fixing his gaze upon the shard, the protagonist reminisces. Jeff was always adamant about steering clear of eating such things. 47 minutes pass, still nothing marks a change. He remarks that all seems unchanged, to which Moros advises patience. Without warning, a surge of energy courses through him and darkness gathers vividly around his form. Cassian ponders in bewilderment over this sensation. Moros encourages him to stay composed and at ease, yet what follows takes Cassian aback. The hero's music physical transformation completes. His claws sharpen, enveloped by whirling arcane power, and that energy music begins to drift away. Cassian is certain his magic strength has climbed. With just a single magic crystal consumed, he feels his being brimming music with newfound might. He now realizes thoroughly why magic wielders covet these stones so desperately. It felt nearly music-like he'd found a secret advantage. Cassian wonders aloud if Moros can appraise his stats with his special eye. Some moments pass in quiet. Cassian vents that his mana only climbed by 50, having hoped for much more. Moros muses, questioning Cassian's disappointment at such an achievement. Considering that for any villain, consuming the finest magic crystal might only yield a boost of 5 or 10 magic. This result of 50 is truly a record breaker, 5 times greater than any previous increase. Such is the magic crystal's outstanding potency. For even those reckoned as catastrophic in class, its power is absurd. Yet in Cassian's inventory of secret skills appears magic crystal extraction, confounding him. He thirsts to know how one should employ it, and Moros responds flatly, "It is exactly what it sounds like. One can drain magic from armaments, including those forged from pure Jinn crystals." Cassian groans that it's a mediocre skill under a grandiose title, leaving Moros visibly irked. This ability to harvest magic crystals sets him apart. Now, unlimited crystals are within his reach. Cassian notes that he'll have to discover sources for these weapons crafted from enchanted stones. Music at the Sunshine department store inside a donut cafe, De Wong proudly displays a blade, proudly declaring his acquisition of a personal weapon. Its title itself was grand, The Sword of Music, the Mighty Bear alongside 4 tigers. He then requests Wu Chan to say a few words, but the student merely remarks that it's an exquisite sword. De Wong explains it was crafted from not less than 2 first-rate enchanted crystals music, making it a masterpiece among masterpieces. Yet Wu Chan, setting the sword aside, brings the conversation back to whether any leads have been uncovered on the antagonist who battled Blaster. De Wong complains about the abrupt shift in the conversation. Still, he swept through all available data comprehensively but unearthed nothing. This adversary appears to be a new face. Wu Chan wonders, perhaps he's an unregistered hero. Yet Daeum finds that improbable based on the person's looks and traits, and points out that present circumstances call for attention elsewhere, specifically questioning if Wu Chan has heard of the serial murderer, since Ji Damu's special unit is on high alert over the matter. Wu Chan wants to know if Driver could be responsible, recalling him as the primary suspect, but Da Wong dismisses that idea. The student music is puzzled, asking why Da Wong is so certain. De Wong explains that while things like sports cars or gadgets would bear Driver's signature, this is far outside his nature. Murder is not his way. Wu Chan argues that Driver remains unpredictable and dangerous, a criminal whose initiatives are impossible to predict. But De Wong sips his coffee, noting that the grisly intentionality behind the murders makes it much more likely that a villain is responsible. Yet derangement is not only a mark of villains, even an ordinary individual could be behind these acts. Elsewhere in the city, a photo session is underway in a studio. The photographer encourages them to adopt more playful, bold expressions. The 2 young women beam as they shift, earning words of praise from behind the camera. With cheerful grins, the shoot is brought to a close. Stepping outside, Non grumbles about the late hour, already past 7. She had wished to visit the stationery shop before heading home but confirms there's no time. She still longs for that special edition bottle, glancing at Minyoung who is beside her. Non comes over and asks whether Minyoung music hasn't departed yet. She reacts with surprise when their eyes meet. Minyoung, though a little uncertain, latches onto her companion's arm, proposing they give the claw machine a try. Non utters surprise at the suggestion during such a late hour, but Minyoung's reply is that it has been some time since their last visit. Minyoung encourages doing just 1 round for fun, promising it'll be quick. But while Non protests, claiming home duties await, she relents as her friend insists once again. Non finally consents to try just a single time music. Meanwhile, from afar, an unknown observer gazes at them. It's a murderer, who grins in silent anticipation. The next morning, his home is filled with news and rumors, the G-Dam special squad swearing vengeance and the end of the brutal killing spree. Cassian remarks solemnly that 3 lives have already been lost. Moros inquires if he intends to take up Driver's music deal. Yet Cassian counters, he's indifferent to the deal, but this heartless murderer has already claimed innocent lives and he refuses merely to spectate. Moros gives no response, sinking into silence. Cassian continues, explaining it is a rarity for a senseless murderer like this to emerge now, and notes that other facts are scarce. All that is certain is the killings occurred in the G-Dam district. Moros brings up the item Driver once gave him. Cassian is momentarily confused. What item? Music on the day of their arrangement. Cassian questioned the reasoning, to which Driver revealed its essential purpose: staying in touch. It was set so that only messages and documents could be transmitted. There is no tracking function, so he can remain unconcerned. Cassian protests that he doesn't want it, yet Driver persists, promising to send updates about the murderer and telling him to reach out at any time he desires. He further assures the protagonist that he'll supply all necessary aid. Cassian's only duty is to be certain this killer is caught. For the moment, that was Driver's final request. Alone in his room, Cassian stares at the phone, entering a password but halting in sudden uncertainty. Smacking the phone down on the table, he declares he won't be using it. His own sense of honor constrains him. How could he possibly engage with a criminal through messages? Moros inquires where he's going. Cassian answers that he refuses to remain idle indoors. If solutions escape him, he'll search for them by roaming outside. Over at the neighborhood arcade, Minyoung exclaims that her friend finally succeeded. Non stands quietly as the girl claims she's almost there, but in a misstep it slips away from her grasp. Non grumbles with dismay and Minyoung laments their luck. It would be wise to give it another go, though Non expresses her irritation and insists on leaving. The friend notes with a sigh it isn't yet even 8:00. A drone observes them from afar. Non reiterates that her bothersome brother has imposed a curfew as she'd warned. Music Minyoung meanwhile appears troubled by something. She pleads to linger a little longer, hesitant to part ways. With concern, Non asks if something's amiss, noticing Minyoung is shuddering with fear. After a moment she confides, voice shaking, that she witnessed it herself. Their classmate who was murdered days prior. Non knows the tale. Music Minyoung saw everything as it unfolded. Queried by Non, she admits she wished to confide in someone but terror held her back. She now has the dreadful sense the same fate awaits her. Non Music presses her urgently. Was she spotted? This isn't a moment for hesitation. There's still a chance. Both of them must head straight for the authorities and she'll stand by her friend. They ought to flee quickly. If Minyoung truly saw the murderer, danger stalks them both. The two race to the arcade's exit only to find passage barred. Unable to comprehend the sudden lowering of shutters, they pause and Non's gaze drops in horror. Blood now stains the floor in place of tiles. A chilling voice greets them, remarking on their reunion. The girls whirl around, terror mounting as something dreadful begins to arise from the pool of blood. It coalesces into a vaguely human form. While Minyoung descends into panic, Non gathers herself to shield her companion. The B-rank villain known as Blood Music Rain mocks them bitterly from the rooftop, and Cassian bears silent witness. He says nothing in response, prompting Moros to doubt the usefulness of wandering about like this. Cassian, irritated, tells him if he planned to be so troublesome he ought to have stayed behind. But the spirit remarks that whether wishing to or not, he's tethered to remain nearby. Just then, Cassian's phone sounds, sparking curiosity. Moros wonders aloud if that might be the very phone driver provided. And what became of all that talk of upholding pride? Cassian retorts that he'll discard it entirely if he receives anything out of the ordinary, but something unexpected catches his eye. Within the arcade, the girls are paralyzed by fear while the monster merely smiles coldly. Non's attention shifts as she spots the nearby drone. The revelation hits her. Before them is none other than the villain, the very culprit Minyoung had witnessed in that terrible moment. Minyoung falters, asking what can save them now. Na Yoon's mind casts back to something Wu Chan once entrusted her. Her friend inquires its purpose, and her brother had told her it was an emergency alarm. He advised her against teasingly setting it off. Only true distress should move her so he could reach her at once if ever called upon. Understanding this is no false emergency, Non presses the alarm, desperately hoping he'll appear without delay. Blood Rain remarks on their clear exhaustion, declaring he'll offer the pitiful beings unending slumber, but Non snaps at him, branding him as mad. If endless sleep is so appealing to him, she retorts, he might as well do it to himself. Blood Rain replies, calling her a disrespectful brat. As he draws nearer to the girls, Non realizes she has to stall him until her OA arrives. She tries to delay, questioning his motives. Blood Rain lapses into silence for several moments. Music finally, he says her inquiry is a peculiar one. He claims he finds enjoyment without needing any justification. To Non, it's obvious he's utterly unhinged. Still, Blood Rain tells her he'll humor her childish curiosity with an answer. His craving for new blood and the thrill of shredding lifeless forms, these are his reasons. In this world he's uncovered just one truth. Nothing brings him more delight than that. Non issues a warning, ordering him to stay put as her brother is almost here, and he's powerful, requiring only 3 mere seconds to dismantle a beast like him. A sinister grin spreads across Blood Rain's lips as he repeats her claim that her mighty brother's arrival is imminent. With that in mind, he wonders aloud how her brother might react upon discovering his beloved sister's colorless, drained form scattered before him. Music. Terror floods the faces of the girls in response to his words. Blood Rain announces the beginning of his deed and conjures an explosive wave. Non is caught off guard as the energy slips right past her, striking Minyoung who stood by her side. Minyoung collapses. Non whirls about, crying out her friend's name, then rushes to her, fervently pleading for her not to leave, begging her to hang on. Blood Rain warns that now her moment has come, it will be the perfect twisted present for her sibling. As his assault nears her, a voice hurls a curse, and a blaze of light sweeps through the chamber. A fist bursts straight through the door. Non swivels in place as Blood Rain acknowledges the newcomer. The protagonist declares, "Here's a little present for the villain." Wielding his shadowy claw, dark blade gleaming, he lashes out, calling upon the fiend to receive this. The attack races for Blood Rain, but the antagonist simply lowers his head to avoid it. Once more on his feet, he braces himself as Cassian leaps. Blood Rain grounds his stance and Cassian notices. He then blocks music the villain's strike, closes in anew, yet realizes his own hand is trembling. Music Cassian halts abruptly. Blood Rain's eyebrow lifts in surprise, questioning this peculiar turn. Could this supposed invincible brother actually be a villain himself? Confusion flickers through Non's mind as she studies the stranger. Blood Rain fixes his gaze on the newcomer, mulling over the unfamiliar abilities and unfamiliar face, suspecting this might be the one rumored to have vanquished Blaster and now stands before him. Indeed, this promises to be quite the lively encounter. Blood Rain declares he's taking his leave for now, while warning her safety is a fleeting illusion. Cassian immediately senses his intent. The villain adds that her life still belongs to him and her impending end will wound Non deeply. Cassian darts after him, demanding to know his destination, but he manages only the slightest touch, dipping his fingertip into the blood. The briefest contact, Blood Rain has already vanished from sight. Cassian exclaims angrily, "This is truly frustrating." He ponders where he vanished, and Non gently requests his patience. With trembling words and tear-streaked cheeks, she pleads for his help. "Please, I'm begging you, save my friend." As they hurriedly drive 57 minutes along the route, DeWong wonders aloud if maybe his sister merely hit the panic button in jest. Music. Wu Chan remarks that if it were truly a prank, his sister would have certainly reached out. She doesn't indulge in childish jokes like this. Dong adds that he, too, has already contacted the authorities and they should soon arrive. Wu Chan can do nothing more at the moment except hope for his sister's well-being. Meanwhile, at the neighborhood arcade, Non urgently calls to the ambulance, informing them that a critical patient awaits, pressing the necessity of haste. Cassian announces the ambulance's imminent arrival, but insists they must first stanch the bleeding, instructing her to hand over any cloth she has, particularly anything with some stretch. Searching through her bag, the girl quickly gives him a suitable item. Cassian inquires as to what it is, and Non, accompanied by music, replies that they are socks. Remarkably elastic ones. With determined hands, the protagonist winds the socks tightly around Minyoung's torso. Seeking further clarity, he requests permission to assess her state. Moros asks if he simply wants to check how severe the situation is. If that's his aim, there's no need to employ his insightful eye. Music. For now, nothing carries the shadow of mortality. The protagonist relaxes a little, admitting that's a comfort. Non anxiously asks if her friend will survive, and he reassures her she should, provided the ambulance is presently pulling up, which indeed it is, their pace admirable. He has already given basic emergency care, now the professionals can handle what lies ahead. Non offers him heartfelt gratitude but wonders softly, accompanied by music, if he intends to depart so soon. He affirms his choice, explaining that his lingering presence might frighten the paramedics and complicate her friend's circumstances. Cassian concentrates, collecting his strength. In a blink, he disappears, soaring over the rooftops. Moros silently remarks on their narrow brush with death. If Cassian hadn't appeared, none would have survived. The protagonist senses something at his side, vaults nimbly to a neighboring roof, and admits aloud that this peculiar disturbance has preoccupied him for some time. He wonders aloud what manner of entity trails behind him. Crow emits a shrill whistle. Cassian notices legs emerge from above. A woman reveals herself, standing atop the building. She observes, almost amused, that they cross paths once more and asks if he truly does not recognize her. Her vexation seeps into her voice. "You're so frustrating, you're making me want to do something drastic." With sudden recollection, the protagonist identifies her as the companion of Driver. He replies that she stood before him but hours ago, there's no way he'd forget. Driver responds appreciatively, "I'm glad you recall us." Meanwhile, Crow draws nearer, her gaze probing him. She introduces herself, remarking that her name rather suits her persona. Curious, she asks for his name, but the protagonist answers that he has not yet received one. She teases, noting his lack of a villainous moniker. Cassian casually replies that the idea of a villain name never crossed his mind. And more pressingly, with music spanning 59 minutes, he wishes to know exactly what this peculiar thing is. Crow replies that Driver dispatches these devices to places where the threat might strike. They use them to relay information which allowed them to unmask the killer. Unconvinced, Cassian demands to know the true face of this mysterious figure. Crow reveals that it's Blood Rain, a wanderer who traverses the nation, leaving countless victims in their wake. Confessing, she says that at first she suspected his hand in the matter, but his movements are difficult to track, adding to her uncertainty. Music. Aside from this, certain internal issues complicated things as well, but for his sake he should forget she ever mentioned them, or else she may have to silence him. Music. Even so, she won't risk provoking Driver's displeasure. Meanwhile, the mechanic simply heads off to fetch his snack. Just then, recollection flickers in her. She remarks that Driver instructed her to deliver this, promising explanations once he manages the problem. Next, she flings the tiny package toward our hero. Cassian demands what this even is, to which she replies it's a portion of the promised reward. Music inside gleamed 3 orderly magic crystals. Furthermore, these crystals were of the highest excellence. Morning breaks upon the city. A journalist reports that yesterday, near 8 o'clock at night, the antagonist once again carried out a series of murders. Luckily, the situation claimed no lives, as the heroes managed a prompt arrival. A young woman, still in high school, is receiving medical care, though she is in stable condition now. Yuri questions whether Kang is heading to class, and he affirms. Thereupon she advises him to stay alert, the world isn't especially safe at the moment. Music. Soon after, Cassian traverses the urban streets, contemplating that it's been a handful of days since he inherited Kang Wu Quan's form. He must grow in strength if he wishes for vengeance on Lampas, though he is uncertain about putting faith in this one-eyed music creature. The bargain he struck with the district's villains also continued to unsettle him since last night. He couldn't quite grasp why she would bestow upon him 3 superior magic crystals. He turned one crystal over in his hand, questioning if this alone fulfilled the reward they'd described. Crow inquired whether the reward wasn't enough, to which our hero confessed that it was, in fact, more than sufficient. The girl answered that was precisely her thought as well. Blood Rain possesses overwhelming might, and with your magic as it is, you stand no chance against him. Hidden within, there's also a micro-tracking device crafted by Driver. Should an opportunity arise, it may prove useful. Another note, Driver compiled a record of sightings related to Blood Rain, and it's worth reviewing when the moment comes. Truth be told, Driver's hopes for him are not high. Should he let Driver down, she believed he understood her likely response. Cassian, now back in the moment, wonders just what in the world they are plotting. Moros gently reminds him this path doesn't lead toward the school. The protagonist responds that there's another stop he must make. Reviewing the files Driver compiled, he discovered that incidents clustered more densely at COI High School. Those same young women from yesterday also attended that school. Exploring there might reveal valuable hints. Moros questions whether he means to inquire about the murderer at the campus, and our protagonist states he'll investigate as needed, but something continues to gnaw at him. It was regarding one particular girl from before. Noon was, in fact, the younger sister of his school's most admired boy. Reaching out to the school beforehand now seems necessary. He calls in with a feigned tale of catching a cold, claiming he needs a quiet day at home. Meanwhile, at the Gadam District Hospital, Wu Chan waits among the chairs and Dwung appears beside him, handing over a cup of coffee and remarking he spent the whole night awake. He inquires about Non's condition, and Wu Chan replies that she has just fallen into sleep. He wonders aloud if there was time to review the case report, to which Daeyoung gives a nod. He explains reviewing the surveillance videos proved futile since all of them were destroyed, but according to the report, it was clear the incident was Blood Rain. Everyone knows he drains blood from his targets, never leaving marks on their bodies. But those victims in Gadam District suffered obvious harm, which led to the faulty assumption it wasn't him. He can hardly accept that he was involved. With a sigh, De Wong remarks and Wu Chan observes that the figure who assisted Non and Miniong must have been the same man from before. He grows quiet, reflecting aloud that Non referred to him as her savior. Music, if he really is a villain, he must have an unstable mind to save others, including his sister. De Wong, unsure of his meaning, comments that he too is left wondering. It's the same pattern he showed in the blaster incident. They are determined to uncover his true identity. Wu Chan merely fixes his gaze on his coffee cup. From afar, near the girls' academy, Cassian surveys the scene, coolly studying everyone present. Moros inquires if he traveled such a distance and skipped school just to be here. Inside a nearby convenience shop, Cassian selects a soda. Near the counter, he notices some girls questioning the cashier if he's a model. The young man behind the counter denies it, stating he is a student taking a semester break. The girls then want to know where he spends his studies. The young man asks about their curiosity. Cassian remarks he wishes to purchase the soda. Smiling at him, the student promises to ring it up now, scans the barcode and says, "That'll be 321. Cassian reaches for his card but suddenly catches sight of something odd. He spies a book titled The Bride of Corinth. Music, something dawns on him. The cashier slips the soda into a bag. An elderly gentleman asks if he may have some scrap paper about to be discarded. The young man moves to help him, colliding gently with the protagonist's music shoulder. Moros notices the detail as well. The attendant tells them to wait a moment. From across the way, both Cassian and Moros watch with shared suspicion. Once outside, Moros calls after Cassian, insisting there's something important he must say. Cassian, straightforward, responds that he's a villain. Taken aback, the soul listens. Music, Cassian continues that he figured it out the moment he met his gaze. Moros admits he isn't certain that he's blood. Music, Rain, but Cassian brings up The Bride of Corinth, the book found on the killer's counter. The protagonist recounts that it's a classic tale of vampirism, recalling the otherworldly phrase, "You must lose your life to him." Cassian shares that he felt a sense of familiarity. The line comes from that very book. Moros marvels that it's remembered, while Cassian reveals music he used to read occasionally back at the orphanage. Taking a sip from his soda, he declares that soon they'll see if the card they hold is in fact the music joker. The convenience clerk changes into another outfit, locks the door and leaves the shop behind. From afar, Cassian observes him, keeping an attentive eye as the man moves along his way. Music, Moros parts his eyelid, his tone implying curiosity. Isn't that the path leading to CO High School for girls? Cassian considers where the man might be heading. Immediately after, he turns on his heel at the sight of a car nearing the elderly gentleman. The man looks petrified, but Cassian intervenes, escorting him out of harm's reach. The vehicle halts. The driver asks if everyone's all right. While the older man gathers himself, Cassian remembers his intention, but by then Blood Rain had quietly slipped away. With music irritation, the protagonist notes this upsetting turn of events. Deep in an urban alleyway, Maro remarks he hadn't anticipated undergoing his transformation in such a location. The protagonist observes the absence of reachable rooftops nearby. Before doing anything else, he decides to consume the magic crystal. Within the alley, transformation starts. The protagonist's strength swells further. Moros urges him to inspect it closely with the eye of wisdom. Cassian discovers two newly unlocked powers, shadow movement and hidden shadows. Moros shares that increased points are key to awakening these abilities. Acquiring different skills is possible exclusively by raising the amount of spell points. During Cassian's time as a hero, growth was simple. Training alone made him stronger. He exclaims that his points total only 470, even though he has ingested 3 magic crystals. Moros posits that his body might have adjusted, and that music next crystal may yield almost no points at all. Cassian remarks that if magical strength could be improved merely by swallowing magic crystals, music they would have probably just handed some to him. He knows he can't depend solely on crystals for advancement. New growth paths must be uncovered. Music, he instructs Moros to display Blood Rain's status. Moros cautions that if it happens again after 2 prior uses, Cassian will pass out. A display window materializes. Cassian contemplates whether one skill enabled Blood Rain's escape, noticing another, the mind control ability. Moros explains this is hardly unexpected given his affinity is with the mind. The protagonist softly utters the word hypnosis. Music he cautions that conquering such a foe won't be simple. Inside the city hospital, long after everyone has departed, a torrent of red energy leaks from a corner room. Blood saturates the interior. Blood Rain wields control over his devoted followers. Their lips twist into smiles as Blood Rain commands, "Fetch that child for him." With nightfall gathering on the following day, staff trickle out from their shifts. In a hotel suite, Minyoung reclines on the bed while Non sits nearby. She remarks on his absence, questioning internally the identity of the mysterious boy. A group of nurses call Non's name. They let her know that Miss Minyoung is about to have several important procedures performed. It's such a crucial matter that they'd prefer she accompany them, taking precedence over the music guardian. Their grins and waves seem peculiar. Elsewhere in the earlier alley, the protagonist draws forth amethyst shadows. He vaults with his fresh abilities, landing quickly and crouching low to the earth. He shows up on the summit of a structure, only to instantly dissolve away from view, and his power steadily reaches further. Cassian considers fusing shadow movement with hidden shadows to use in concert. Moros also brings news that's less encouraging. The hero lets his transformation fade, his figure materializing atop a city rooftop. A spectral voice warns him that he is burning through magical energy at an alarming rate, and with little melody in its tone, urges him to wield it sparingly. Cassian retorts by telling the soul to cease its constant worrying. Just then, his phone alerts him to new information. The protagonist remarks that this should be the location he anticipated all along. He was certain things would play out this way. That wretched Blood Rain is truly heading for the hospital where the girls from yesterday are staying. Thankfully, he managed to slip a tracking device on the villain. Cassian's attention then shifts to non-resolute determination stealing his gaze. He springs upward once again. Time is short, they need to arrive swiftly. Within the hospital's parking structure, Non inquires about what's happening and why they have to board an ambulance for a supposed medical procedure. The attending doctor stressed its urgency, insisting it must occur outside the hospital walls. The girl, anxious, asks for clarification. Blood Rain chimes in, revealing the procedure relates to loyalty. She spins to face him. The villain grins, pleased to be reunited. As ominous music haunts the air, he proclaims her fate is sealed, her life will end by his hand. The girl quakes with terror. She shouts that he's a villain and urges everyone present to escape, but is shocked as the staff turn coldly toward her, their glazed eyes exposing their hypnotized condition. Blood Rain calmly explains that these people obey his every command, revealing he could make the girl just as subservient, although it would not affect her. As Non secretly activates a distress signal, the villain muses she possesses a remarkable will, able even to transcend her instinctual fear. In his mind, she was an ideal bride suited only for him. At that moment, Cassian interrupts, commanding Blood Rain to stop uttering such madness. Blood Rain, startled, demands to know who has interrupted, scanning the area for the intruder. Cassian advises the girl that when he shouts 3, she should drop to the floor. Blood Rain suspects it's his old adversary returned. As discordant music lingers, Cassian shouts 3 and Non immediately hits the ground. In a breath, the protagonist explodes through the window, his foot driving into Blood Rain's face. Blood Rain is hurled violently backwards. Still reeling from the blow's sheer momentum, Blood Rain has no respite. The hero follows up with another fierce kick, burying it into the monster's torso. Slamming into the wall hard enough to shatter it and accompanied by foreboding music, Blood Rain howls furiously, cursing his opponent for disrupting plans once again. Unfazed, Cassian approaches, his power rising, vowing he's only begun. Suddenly alert, the adversary manages to evade a blow targeting his face. An onslaught of attacks follows, forcing the villain to constantly duck and weave, teeth clenched, utterly at a disadvantage as the music swells menacingly. Deciding to retaliate, Blood Rain lunges with his clawed hand. This deadly strike, the sanguine slash, lets his talons extend. Remaining vigilant, Cassian dodges aside, then counters with a powerful punch to the villain's uplifted chin as music intensifies. Momentum building, he readies another assault, damning the foe as he hammers him into the ground, channeling ominous dark energy. As Blood Rain begins to lose consciousness, he stubbornly rises, glaring back at his opponent. With desperate fury, he tries to tap into his hypnotic powers, yelling that his adversary will now truly comprehend the pain of death. Yet the hero's claws pierce him, ending the monster's rage for good. Cassian refuses to relent, raining down punishing strikes and creating a cacophonous uproar. He keeps a relentless grip, holding the villain's face in his grasp, again smashing him forcefully into the unforgiving ground. He questions if this is truly the life he's led so far, though ultimately it isn't important, for he vows that no one will be harmed by him anymore. Yet, Blood Rain bursts into laughter, amused by his words, mocking him for thinking he could ever be stopped, boastful in his invincibility. Cassian, with music stirring, demands to know if he's lost his senses, but the creature submerged in crimson stirs, soon dissolving into a rippling, cackling puddle. Turning aside, Cassian shifts his gaze. He strikes out at the swelling blood pool, only to find his blow hits nothing but concrete beneath. Moros cautions that Blood Rain is an exceptionally troublesome foe, for when his bloody power is active for an hour and 10 minutes, physical assaults are futile. The hero contemplates how much easier things would be if he possessed a distant attack, just as someone inquires about their whereabouts. Some doctors voice confusion over being in the parking area, and Non checks if everyone is unhurt. Moros states that the spell controlling them has finally lifted. The protagonist, carried by the urgency of the moment, shouts over the music for sanctuary to be found for the women. Afterward, he bolts away while Non repeatedly calls for him, hoping he'll stop so they can exchange words, but he presses on. Pushing further through the garage, Cassian murmurs to himself that escape is impossible. The chase will not end until he catches him. Moro simply observes in silence. Concurrently, Wu Chan and De Wong rush forward as well. When the main character arrives at the elevator, he is confronted by the two and they all face one another tensely. De Wong accuses him of being a villain, and the protagonist wonders in bewilderment about their identities. With a clear motion of resolve, the hero unsheathes his blade, hurled forward with his knightly power now ablaze. The protagonist protests their unsolicited assault, urging them to stop interfering in his pursuit. He deftly parries the music-backed attack, knocking the sword away before it spins back into Deong's hand. He turns to Wu Chan, instructing him to cover his movements. Briefly, he remembers how Non claimed her savior stood here was this very man, wondering why a villain had come to a hospital. His recollections interrupted as his teacher summons him amid distant music. Wu Chan activates his skill, announcing that villainy cannot be excused, for every villain should be wiped out. An enormous conflagration erupts, hurtling at the protagonist. Cassian fearlessly lunges into the flames, employing a claw to counter them, his shadow blade splitting the inferno in half. He murmurs a frustrated curse, realizing Deong is suddenly behind him. Amid the surge of music, the protagonist whirls around instantly just as the hero's lightning-quick blade slashes out. Barely keeping pace, Cassian manages to sidestep the blade, though now scarlet droplets begin to fly. De Wong exclaims excitedly that they've landed a hit. Wu Chan, enveloped in his burning enchantment, advances. Suddenly, the memory of his sister's words echoes. This was truly her rescuer. Wu Chan pauses, uncertain for just a moment. The central figure glances over his shoulder and, spotting a chance to flee, expertly slips away using his remarkable agility. Afterwards, Wu Chan shields his face from view. Duong demands to know what possessed him, and the young man offers an apology. Still, the trainer presses, questioning why they weren't attacked. By Gate B in the parking structure, Duong observes, he seemed to use the shadows. Could it be an affinity for darkness? It's the first time he's encountered such an ability, and he's puzzled over how he'll break down the events in his report. Still, they manage to strike the fugitive at least once, minor as it may be. Noticing Wu Chan's expression, Duong offers reassurance, promising to shield him and treat him like his own little brother. Wu Chan quietly accepts this comfort. Daeyoung maintains an optimistic tone, assuring things will work out fine, though the younger man awkwardly admits that such words come off a bit embarrassing when directed at him. Elsewhere, in a shadowy alley, Blood Rain broods, believing it's his misfortune to have suffered injury. Dusk begins to settle over the city. A certain bookish type inwardly despairs, convinced there's no way to mask his hunger for bloodshed. He clenches his jaw in frustration, then with a sly lick of his lips mutters that this spot will suffice for the Red Juice Club, a place that will sate his thirst for blood. Inside the vibrant nightclub, the crowd dances heedlessly until a sharp-eyed girl notices something amiss. She questions why his clothing is stained with blood and wonders if he needs aid. He replies that all he needs is a drink, inviting her to join him if she wishes and soothing her concern with the assurance that he's already found what he sought. Meanwhile, Da-Wung tears through the streets behind the wheel of his sleek sports car. A broadcast crackles through the radio, relaying chaos at the Red Juice Club on 3rd Street where a notorious villain believed to be Blood Rain has unleashed havoc. Da-Wung exclaims, "Unbelievable that scoundrels already bounced back so soon," and Wu Chan promptly asks for details. Their mentor reveals that Blood Rain replenishes his strength with blood from others and warns they'll never reach him in time to exploit his moment of weakness. Wu takes this in with growing unease, recalling the day he reunited with his sister. He'd asked if she'd been harmed, but Na Yun only said that stranger had rescued her yet again. Her admission catches the young hero off guard. She goes on to explain the mystery savior vanished immediately after. Even now, those puzzling memories preoccupy his thoughts. The car rolls away to a secluded avenue in another part of town, where the main character clutches his wounded side. Moros notes, relieved that the injury isn't life-threatening, yet remarks he seemed out of character during the encounter. Cassian responds by asking what prompts such a remark. The spectral companion observes how differently he behaved with the villains, while sheer hesitation stopped him from letting loose on those heroes. While Cassian ponders the comment, he admits the heroes are the least of his immediate concerns. The adversaries on his mind could no longer be called villains. Just then, Moro notes his wound has nearly closed up. Their attention is drawn downward as the persistent beeping from the protagonist's GPS reveals an alert. An abrupt display of activity at the Red Juice Club flashes across the screen. An appalling sight awaits. Numerous bodies lying motionless on the nightclub floor as a handful of girls desperately try to escape. Da-Wung and Wu Chan stumble upon the carnage. Blood Rain waits amidst it, calmly seated at a table as the faint strains of music linger in the air. He claims he's nearly content, and at the very least physically secure for now. Da-Wung declares he has at last found the villain, but Blood Rain politely asks them to keep quiet, as he treasures his special moment and wishes not to be interrupted. Da-Wung gazes at those around him, all shaking with terror. In the next instant, he's struck by understanding. He commands his pupil to save whoever can be rescued and escape quickly. Blood Rain proclaims that with his strength now returning, misfortune is sure to descend. He rushes forward with ferocity toward the valiant ones, throwing a spear dripping with blood in their direction. Both notice the danger at once. Daeyong swiftly unsheathes his blade, delivering a slash that drives back the crimson spear. Wu Chan also leaps ahead, flames flickering in his grasp, readying himself to unleash a blaze, but his teacher cries out for him to stop, reminding him he could burn the innocent as well. Instantly, the youth halts. Blood Rain asks if he truly thinks he has the luxury to be concerned about others at this moment. Then, a radiant glow emerges above Da-Wung. The foe jeers that his own safety should take priority, releasing a powerful skill upon him. Da-Wung is violently propelled as far away as possible. He crashes into the wall, blood spurting from his mouth from the impact. Blood Rain rushes once again, boldly announcing he will claim the hero's life with a grand display of his gift, delivering a ruthless strike to his opponent's visage. Laughter fills the air as blood is extracted, while Wu Chan descends from above, his fists ablaze, smashing a fiery blow that annihilates everything ahead. Suddenly, Blood Rain is at his back, remarking, "It's a fine technique, though pointless if you lack mastery of it." Wu pivots in confusion, seeking his foe, yet the antagonist is already armed, slashing the young man across the chest. Clutching his wound, Wu laments inwardly, "This is awful." Blood Rain's power swells, but Wu retaliates with a quick kick, instinctively forcing the villain back. At that, Wu falls to the earth, grasping his wounded chest as blood seeps out. Crimson droplets fall gently from Blood Rain's claw. Blood Rain tells him he ought to have landed his strikes with more strength. Had he done so, bones would certainly have shattered. Wu muses to himself that this opponent's might is overwhelming. Balancing restraint for the innocent with the power needed for victory feels nearly impossible. Blood Rain acknowledges the attack as weak yet noteworthy, understanding the severe burden when one must care for hostages. Then, calling out to Kim Woo-chan, he remarks on the beauty of his little sister, even mentioning he's investigated her a bit. He says she's bright and enchanting, even managing to trick him by throwing him off with that master of shadows. He declares that deceiving him mandates harsh consequences, and lying to him meets with death itself. Woo-chan calls forth his flames and shouts at the villain to burn in the underworld. Blood Rain succumbs to wild laughter, finding pleasure in the hero's wrath, delighting in the prospect of tasting the blood of someone possessed by primal fury, a truly rare prize. The antagonist remarks that he still radiates assurance. To celebrate such unwavering poise, I'll offer you a chance, a moment to discover whether the boldness you hold is mere delusion or truly genuine. Elsewhere in the city, Blood Rain announces that if Woo-chan music prevails over him now, everyone will be free. He urges Woo-chan to unleash every ounce of strength. You have to give it your all. The villain muses that this shadowy location is ideal, and that in exactly 1 hour and 17 minutes he'll savor the taste of blood under the enchanting night sky. Woo-chan suddenly senses something different. Music, he surges onward, taking advantage of the opportunity thrust before him. Determined to have no lingering regrets, he hurls a blazing circle of flames. The fire arcs toward Blood Rain, yet the villain merely smiles coolly, sidestepping the inferno with staggering agility. Woo-chan is taken aback music as a claw strikes forth. He narrowly escapes the swipe, prompting the villain to taunt, asking if that's the limit of his skill. He reminded him to give his utmost. The music blow finds its mark on the valiant youth. Blood Rain proclaims he too will be fighting at full force. Elsewhere at the Red Juice Club, Cassian surveys the aftermath, puzzled by what transpired. He then singles out a deep groove carved into the wall. He comments on the mark, noting it resembles a giant scratch. Moros observes that considering its depth, the one responsible must possess extraordinary strength. Cassian speculates who might have caused this until Da Wong comes into view, collapsed on the floor. The main character reflects, it's that same man once more. He checks if the figure is lifeless and Moros reassures him with, he's still breathing. The protagonist realizes Woo-chan should be present, but remains out of sight. Moros' music calls Cassian over to behold something. A magical blade was resting on the floor nearby. Cassian grasps it, noting he senses its powerful aura at his touch. Moros advises it's an excellent moment, that music the time is right to extract the sword's mana gem. The hero agrees but reminds himself the sword isn't his. Then, recalling his previous wound from Deong music, he resolves to proceed. He drops the sword to the earth and clutches the two mystical crystals in hand. Music Cassian consumes them both. A surge of raw power floods through him. The hero finds himself overwhelmed by its spell. A forceful wave collides with his chest and suddenly a realization dawns upon the protagonist. Moros, taken aback, reacts with surprise. All the energy within the room seems to be swallowed by darkness. Cassian declares that checking his stats is unnecessary. He instantly knows what it means to be outlandishly powerful. Across town atop a transmission tower, 3 figures wait together, curious as to when he'll arrive. Weariness overwhelms their vigil. Woo-chan barrels forward, arm engulfed in music blazing force, all of his fury concentrated in the punch. Yet Blood Rain only seizes the attack with a single, steady hand. Stepping closer to the young warrior, he cautions that such a puny flicker holds no threat for him. Within his talons, a gleaming orb draws itself into being. Without warning, it slams into Woo-chan's belly, leaving the youth utterly senseless. Blood Rain mocks his fragility, deriding his pitiful weakness. Brandishing his claws, he declares that such worthlessness should only blame itself, as before long he will offer the mercy of assimilation, until a voice bellows, reproaching him for his depravity. Cassian materializes behind the beast, skill awakened. He orders him to stop uttering foolishness, scorning him as nothing but a wretched parasite. Their gazes lock. Blood Rain notes his belated arrival, questioning if he never wearies of constantly ruining his schemes. Music Cassian responds that it's astonishing he still talks so defiantly after fleeing from him before. Blood Rain bursts out with mirth, declaring this body to be different from how it once was. Many lives had been lost, their bloods feeding him until he had grown stronger with their sacrifice. Now he wielded such perfect power that not even a champion of S-rank might pose a threat to him any longer. Cassian quietly repeats the word invincible. Music just then Yuen stumbles to his feet, startled and lost at the sight. Blood Rain readies a new orb of force, urging him to witness the totality of his might. Music Yuen marvels, finding it beyond belief. Blood Rain hadn't even revealed all his strength in their battle. Blood Rain then unleashes upon the hero, calling forth a sky of crimson lances. These rush to surround Cassian in an instant, but he deftly slashes with the shadows dancing at his nails, diverting the spears with his spectral sword abilities. The energy is flung away. Suddenly, an unseen grip clasps Cassian's arm. Blood Rain dives with vengeful claws, demanding his doom, but by then, Cassian had already slipped from his path. This leaves the villains startled and scrambling. Cassian rematerializes just behind, calmly alerting him to his new position. Blood Rain whirls about in reckless intent, aiming a sharp elbow at Cassian. Loudly, but Cassian rematerializes just behind, sidesteps with little effort. Music gathering all his strength in a single motion, Cassian's fist swings upward and lands squarely on Blood Rain's jaw. In the next breath, he unleashes a swift kick to the foe's belly. Then slowly, Blood Rain's senses start to fade. Music. Cassian demands to know where that so-called supreme strength lies and when Blood Rain will show it, punctuating his words with another blow to the head. Cast far across the scene by the force, Blood Rain lands in a heap. Wu Chan stares, mortified and confused, unable to grasp what just unfolded. Cassian was transformed, incomparable to their clash at the medical ward. He was clearly withholding his might, but curiosity gnaws. What kind of entity is he up against? Blood Rain spits crimson, music grumbling the insult under his breath. Stepping closer, Cassian reminds him of his boast that even an S-rank defender couldn't surpass him, then wonders if this is truly the extent of his might. Music. Blood Rain now bleeds an aura tinged with the essence of blood itself. The hero inquires in a lighter tone if he's once more searching for an escape. Blood Rain, uncertain, growls that he has no idea who Cassian truly is, yet, unwillingly, he concedes that his strength is greater. He warns, though, that mere brute force will achieve nothing. He can dissolve into blood at will. He feels certain victory will be his when their next clash unfolds. Yet Cassian declares there won't be another opportunity and ensnares him using swirling shadows. He states that people like him are even lower than refuse, causing Wu Chan unexpected shock. Shadows converge to form a sable flame in his grasp. Cassian coldly proclaims he intends to burn him alive. Blood Rain reacts in disbelief as the sinister fire surges toward his monstrous form. Kang Wu now boasted 520 mana and had attained new powers, the element of umbral flame being his second nature. Next morning, within the hospital's walls, the scene lights up with a YEC breaking update on the news. Blood Rain, who brought turmoil to downtown Gdam the previous night, was at last brought down following a fierce skirmish. This notorious serial killer who haunted the nation's dreams was finally stopped because of Wu Chan, the remarkably gifted hero who managed to challenge and beat him. Do Wong claps a hand on his back with a note of pride, commenting, with music emphasis, how difficult it must have been. He muses about the uncertain fate had victory not been theirs. Wu Chan quietly admits his mentor cannot grasp it all and averts his gaze. He mentions that after the conflict, headquarters were his first contact. Cassian takes hold of Blood Rain's head, dragging his captive along while Wu Chan envisions the black flame, puzzling over its unusual color and silently questioning whether dual attributes are possible, since he had never witnessed them before. Cassian addresses Wu Chan, urging him to summon police and an ambulance, noting the severity of his wounds. Wu Chan asserts he had plainly stated he wasn't Blood Rain's vanquisher, but it seemed no one truly heard his words. De Wong wonders aloud if it was the same young man who faced Blaster. The youth consents, affirming it's indeed the same hero who bested Blood Rain to the rhythm of music. As the heroes refresh themselves in the hospital, Dwang poses the question, is this someone who's both villain and hero? Wu Chan says nothing while the mentor offers ease, assuring him there's no need for anxiety. He surmises a greater motive must be behind those actions. Perhaps hidden battles for strength or dominion pushed him, so he inquires about the Hokuto blade music, but Wu Chan replies it's now secured by authorities. Dwang rejoices, quite satisfied with the outcome. Wu-chan quietly gazes upon the passing landscape through the pane. On music the following school day in a quiet garden, wayward youths regroup. Daegu sits surrounded by his close companions. Talk turns to Wu-chan's triumph over the feared blood rain, admiration clear in their voices. The blonde remarks it's fortunate he never provoked him, or he'd doubtless now occupy a barren grave. Kyoan suddenly perceives something unusual. He inquires about the condition of his comrade's eye. Daegu recounts to everyone's disbelief that he caught a blow fierce enough to send him to a hospital bed with serious fracture. Ki-hoon yells out that the culprit should be responsible for the hospital bills. Yet the other shrugs. It's easy to want but impossible to face their adversary. The purple-haired one proposes that perhaps it's time to reunite the whole crew. Daegu declares that there's no need to continue. He can't explain it, but that fellow was truly intimidating. Far more fearsome than Wu-chan, the hero praised for vanquishing evil. He inquires whether anyone has ever glimpsed someone whose eyes glimmer ominously. At this, Kyun gazes at him with increased caution. Within the third classroom, pupils trade stories. Did you witness it? Kim Wu-chan was incredible. He had a striking presence. Moros observes that everyone is echoing tales of yesterday's events. Cassian ponders when he will manage to visit them himself. Beyond the granted prizes, there remain other matters for his attention. Music Moros probes about the situation. The hero slips into silent contemplation. In the shadowy quarter later, a peculiar contraption ejects odd-looking tape. A young woman begins spraying graffiti, popping gum all the while. She sketches a bear over patched stickers. Someone else holding a can of paint steps out. Music the sight stops him mid-motion. Deep inside, the building pulses with chatter. Driver busily assembles another invention. The faint click of a door catches his attention. Several people barge in and remark about greetings due for a guest, adding that the place reeks and appears disastrously kept. Driver retorts, questioning whether the very first encounter must open with criticism. The man counters that Driver was the one who summoned him in the first place. The villain follows up on this and drinks soon appear on the table. Driver queries whether he personally witnessed that battle. The figure behind the mask confirms, describing how he saw everything. It was cinematic, unfolding without pause from start to finish. The name is Wonjil Gonis Music, an A-ranked individual. Driver requests his opinion and Wong notes the participant was devoid of emotion. Aroma declares it was a poorly executed, predictable battle filled with clichés, with agreement from another. Wong reassures, saying it's simply because he's reminiscent of a story's lead. He naturally draws attention. Watching him was akin to discovering a rare, lustrous onyx. Driver Music wonders if that was meant as praise. Wong affirms, asserting recognition for what was achieved. He hints that knowledge of an unusual trait is what motivated him to be sent. To the other's astonishment, he divulges that the main character possesses dual attributes. The villain looks away in thought, then fixes his gaze upon Wong, uncertain if he's being truthful. Wong counters, surprised Driver was unaware. The latter suspected he was different from the typical villain, to which Wong remarks on his genuine ignorance. A villain who could wield two attributes simultaneously was utterly unheard of. Driver muses that folks of that kind did exist once upon a time. Music. In the myths of ages past, beings like that once walked the earth. Cassian contemplates that the villain district isn't a cage meant to contain outlaws. Rather, it's set up to keep the peace between villains and heroes, granting all a haven from ambushes. It now stands as a sanctuary meant for the well-being of its villainous inhabitants. Music. This stretch of city formed their haven, the villain district. He remarks that no matter how often he arrives, the atmosphere is something he will never embrace. Driver, checking the clock, declares him precisely punctual after an hour and 26 minutes. His energy carried a subtle change since their last encounter, but he expresses contentment in their reunion. Once more inside a forsaken structure, this time the Paradise Bar, a server attends to both of them. A beverage is set upon the table. The driver mentions the grapefruit juice at this place is truly exceptional, promising that after he enjoys it, he'll show his guest around as part of the reward he previously pledged. Music. Placing his glasses on, the driver is caught off guard. He notices his magical prowess has grown. He inquires whether Cassian consumed enchanted crystals or undertook some other feat, but Cassian questions how such a thing would be possible. Driver ponders the newcomer's identity. Their last encounter saw him with only 300 magic points, while now he possesses more than 500. One can't enhance their magic quite that music rapidly just through the crystals previously given. He suspects it could be tied to Cassian's dual nature. Cassian, though, finally voices a question that's long been on his mind. He's interested to know where these magic crystals are sourced and whether someone regularly supplies them. Then a voice interjects, offering to provide them directly himself. Yu Cheha, a hero seen as A rank but not yet officially registered. He reaches for a game piece lying on the table, promptly creates some sandwiches, declaring it a complimentary treat for a truly distinguished music patron. The driver explains that this individual both owns the bar and is a hero residing within enemy territory, while Uch cautions him not to address him as bro. The driver insists he deserves a significant markdown on crystals, but Uch responds that he's already letting them go for next to nothing. The driver urges him to take their years of camaraderie into account. Meanwhile, Cassian ponders the tale of a hero making his home in the villain sector. It must be quite the narrative. He asks then if he's able to purchase magic crystals from Uch, but Uch responds that only those accepted as part of the district's music family qualify. Driver clarifies that merely living in the residential zone of Ville is requirement enough. Cassian wonders if the true aim is for him to move in and serve as a loyal associate. The villain clarifies that entrance mandates a trial, and based on one's outcome, he could even rise to leader rather than remain merely a subordinate. Yu inquires whether there's truly a wish to step down as chief, and the driver confesses it's been on his mind for quite some time. Our protagonist pledges he has no interest in leading the Ville Zone, so the driver wonders aloud why, since music it's such an enviable position. He would enjoy unquestionable authority, gain personal aids, and be granted access to elite training facilities. Cassian maintains that power and self-improvement still supersede such lures, though the villain points out he'd gain access to black market magic crystals as well. Glancing toward UC, Cassian debates the situation. He's unsure, but it appears the man is a clandestine market runner. The bald companion seems likewise involved, as both show no signs of being ordinary or frail. The driver adds that there's even a steady monthly wage for living expenses, yet another attractive detail. Cassian music queries about the specifics, and the villain beckons him nearer, leaning in to secret the astonishing sums, startling him. Throughout, the driver observes it all cheerfully. Cassian now gazes at the duo, while Yu Chai watches from his own vantage point. Elsewhere in the city, Blackhand grimaces, lamenting the revolting taste and doubting there's any true meat in his food. He craves chicken burgers from Papa Hands, yet his companion contends that Queen's isn't a bad choice either. B+ rank Crush longs for the taste of pizza, but can't recall the last moment he indulged in one. Blackhand grouses that he wiped out the only pizza place in the villain sector, while Crush complains that putting pineapple on pizza is an unspeakable offense. As they talk, footsteps are heard behind, and a voice declares everyone has arrived. B-rank Menace Doubleblade reminds the group that now isn't the right moment to fritter away talking about pizza. Blackhand inquires if some hero breached villain territory or what, and his companion quietly informs him that dreaded person is present. It is that youth, clad entirely in black, who previously struck him. Blackhand's fury reignites as he demands to know where that little fiend has gone, and Doubleblade explains he's currently with Driver. They headed to the Paradise Bar, and he's confident Driver forbids scuffles between villains within that enclave. Yet Blackhand proclaims that today someone will shatter that rule. Elsewhere in the city, a figure tunnels through the earth. Driver observes that this one is named Dirt Dog because he delights in burrowing in the soil. Just behind stands Cleaner, who harbors a fixation for tidiness and will not tolerate even a mote of dust. These two stand out as peculiar, yet they're harmless to others. While they may spare people harm, their eccentricities' music threaten to disrupt the fabric of society. Hence, those like them require sanctuaries such as the Ville Zone. Cassian muses how starkly these two contrast the villains he's accustomed to meeting. Perhaps that's the work of that bastard. So, Cassian questions the motive behind the challenge to Best Blood Rain music, prompting Driver to reveal there's a turncoat among them. This revelation takes the protagonist completely off guard. Driver explains that to exile a traitor, they need someone disconnected from both the Vil zone and himself. Perhaps this surprises you, 1 hour 30 minutes, but villains, much like heroes, are not all of one kind, belonging to separate cliques. Among them dwell those who abide by their own code versus those who scorn all rules and authority, acting sovereign unto themselves. Cassian wonders aloud if there's a tie between Blood Rain, Vilzone's living quarters, and this betrayer, Music, but Driver assures him it was a ploy for effect. Nonetheless, he was sure a third party lurked behind the scenes, and their aim is the downfall of the entire Vil zone. The protagonist points out it's not his concern, and Driver says he predicted that answer and counts it among his reasons for admiration. Driver urges him to settle as one of the Vil zone's household. Cassian counters, questioning the absurdity. Driver, in turn, vows on his own villainous honor that his request comes from the heart. Elsewhere in the luxurious Vasperma restaurant resides another scene. Yuri, jotting on her clipboard by the display shelves, contemplates whether Kang Woo has enjoyed a meal yet. After handing him her card, he has not crossed her path again. Summoned by a butler, the manager is informed her presence is required by the owner. From his office, the restaurant's owner praises her tireless work, her sociability, and remarks that no noteworthy imperfection can be found. A man conversing over the phone mentions that's exactly what he's heard about her, expressing anticipation to see it for himself, while the owner admits with a heavy heart that he'll miss having her around. The man then quips, playfully remarking he almost feels as though he's exploiting the situation. Yuri softly knocks, requesting permission to enter, prompting the owner to hang up by promising he'll get back to the call. That man glances at his phone, an amused smile lingering on his face. Within the office again, the owner presents her with an envelope, explaining that the head office in America has extended an invitation. They appreciate her dedication and want her to come for expanded training at their headquarters. Music alongside covering her airfare, they'll secure her an apartment near the main building. It's a wonderful chance and she should accept. Yuri agrees. Music, her thoughts swiftly drift to her brother. Elsewhere in the city, the protagonist heads out beyond the boundaries of the district. Music, at this moment, he's notably subdued, replaying the memory of Driver inviting him to join the Vil zone, then doubting the seriousness of such a suggestion. He had felt genuine surprise Music when Driver had sworn by his life as a villain, indicating the request had been sincere. Cassian comes to a halt soon after. Moros inquires if something weighs on him. Cassian averts his eyes, catching sight of Blackhand by the wall. Crush questions if that's their target. Music, Cassian observes that it appears the Vil zone is troubled with an issue similar to a rodent infestation. Doubleblade speculates as to whether Cassian has already sensed them, commenting that his abilities must surpass those of the average individual. Crush claims he's losing control and wants to break him right now, but Blackhand insists they remain calm because he'll go first, seething with a desire to avenge what happened earlier. Unsure what his adversary is referring to, Cassian listens as Moros warns him, highlighting Music their imminent collective assault. Blackhand finishes focusing his energy, dashing forward and yelling furiously for his opponent to perish. A glass is swiftly hurled at him and morphs instantly into an enormous barrel. Blackhand demands clarification, bemused, stating that it's rude to treat someone who's on their way out in such a manner. The B-rank Jew positions herself before him. Blackhand asks about her bizarre intoxicated antics, to which Juek explains she simply intended to point out that he's violating the code. Attacking in numbers is forbidden. Blackhand retorts with a shout, saying that the rule only holds if the person is already a member of the Vil zone. Doubleblade notices the descent of feathers, and Crow comments that soon he will be. From a rooftop overhead, she surveys the scene, balancing a crow on her finger. 1 hour 33 minutes. Blackhand puzzles over how Crow arrived there. Crow grins, wondering aloud if they truly meant just to let him go. Both of them are taken aback by this. Later, as night cloaks the city, Music, an apartment door swings open. Yuri enters, releasing a sigh that speaks of exhaustion after her day. She flips on the lights, musing whether her brother might already be in bed. She grasps and turns the handle of his door, rapping gently as she calls to him. She recalls her employer acknowledging her efforts and inviting her on a journey of training at the primary office. Letting her bag drop to the floor, Yuri announces her intention to shower and then retire for the evening. The invitation letter remains where it fell, lying atop the ground. Elsewhere in the city, Cassian rushes along with 10 kilograms shackled to his feet and melodies winding around his hands. Moros mentions that it's a timeless method for training. Cassian remarks nothing matches it for building both endurance and power. He reminds himself presently that it won't always be a duel. Sometimes he will find himself outnumbered and facing foes simultaneously. Thus, preserving stamina becomes fundamental. Moros affirms this is a wise perspective. Yesterday, when the confrontation was stopped, Crush pleaded for a pause. After all, he still needed to challenge the examination to join the Vilzone clan. He quietly questions if Crush truly intends to proceed with it, and Blackhand exclaims his one real wish is to snuff out his foe. Cassian responds, saying he will undertake the test but not for another 10 days. At this, the enemies withdraw. Juek states they conduct a welcome ritual and lays out the conditions. Duels are one-on-one and killing is prohibited except in dire need. Moreover, she will be the challenger who faces him first, expressing her hope that the match brings excitement. Cassian fixes her with a glacial gaze. Truthfully, he has no interest in being affiliated with these Vilzone folks. Onlookers in the square exchange shocked glances. With music swirling, the hero braces himself between two poles for balance, reflecting that this is his route to power. Then he can confront Lampas for vengeance. He would grant himself this satisfaction even if it cost him everything, even damnation itself. Cassian picks up new movement at his side, two identical girls lightly stretching. When he resumes running, their eyes follow. They murmur, complimenting his determination and confirming his identity. Aroma and Ade joke that they won't tip Wung off to this. It's their little intrigue, closely guarded. Upon returning home, the main character smooths away tension in a refreshing shower. Entering the lounge, he dries himself and asks silently whether his sister is still sound asleep 95 minutes on. A curious detail snags his attention, the chaos left behind by his sister. He muses over the clutter he now has to address. His eyes land on a letter cast on the floor. Yuri, yawning, rouses and greets her brother's early start but spots his interest in her correspondence. Quickly, the girl snatches the envelope, questioning what he's up to and whether he pried into her mail. Cassian remarks it resembles some American invitation. Suddenly shy, Yuri insists she will turn it down. When he probes her reasoning, she confesses she can't simply abandon him. He assures her he'll manage fine by himself, inwardly admitting that a bit of solitude may offer some relief. The girl retorts, questioning if he is proficient with the kitchen or laundry, since even that spoiled food grew foul. Cassian insists his childhood has passed, while Yuri points out he's 19 and yet to graduate secondary school. Nevertheless, he urges her to seize this rare opening, assuring her it's worth it. He explains she should set aside worries for his sake and chase her own destiny without hesitation. Elsewhere in the Vilzone, a trio holds council in a secluded nook. Doubleblade remarks that just 1 week remains and questions whether the candidate approaches for the challenge. Blackhand inquires whom he means. His leader specifies it is the contender facing Juek, and a villain laments missing his chance to brawl with the newcomer. Doubleblade observes the recruit even bested driver. Blackhand claims the match was likely soft, as Crush teases if he wasn't defeated as well. The younger man snaps, wondering if he's being provoked, but Doubleblade, armed with knives, says the right to challenge only comes after besting Juek. Music Blackhand remarks that watching him get overwhelmingly defeated would be amusing, yet chooses to place his bet on him rather than Juek. His desire for vengeance still burns, and he'll strive with all his might to see it fulfilled. Music later, as they meet in his chamber, Moros inquires whether the protagonist supports his sister's journey to America. Cassian assures it's an excellent chance for her, but the spirit presses is that truly his only motivation. The protagonist Music holds his tongue a moment, revealing that this opportunity serves them both equally well. And his words are not those of Cassian, but rather Quan Kang Wu's. Moros wonders if he'll be fine managing on his own, and the protagonist Music responds, Naturally, I've lived alone before in America. The ghost gently teases, saying that while he asks, he observes him searching for instructions on how to prepare rice. Elsewhere in the house, Yuri gazes thoughtfully at the letter. She sighs, pondering her choice, as memories of her boss's words and her brother's advice drift through her mind. Her friends' voices call her back to reality. Seated at a tavern, they prod her. Did she summon them just for them to witness her mournful expression, or perhaps she's troubled over a man? The blonde friend silences the bespectacled one. Drinks soon arrive at their table. The group chooses to share a drink. After all, she tends to open her heart after a touch of alcohol. Yuri empties her glass and later at home music staggers, clearly intoxicated. Cassian checks if she's alright and wonders why she drank so much, but Yuri insists she is perfectly sober. She muses that her younger brother is precious, prompting Moros to note she's speaking nonsensically. Gently, the protagonist settles her into bed. Yuri reminisces about how he once trailed after her everywhere, but now, he's grown enough to care for her. Cassian's thoughts turn to Jeff, linking that kind of maturity to the concern Jeff once inspired in him. With tenderness, he looks upon his sister, tucks her in, and lingers for music a moment longer. The following morning at work, Yuri complains of an aching head and her overindulgence, but something on the table catches her eye. She discovers a note left by the protagonist. In it, he mentions he's made bean sprout soup music, a traditional hangover cure, and instructs her to reheat it and have it with rice. He writes too that 1 hour and 38 minutes gained him enough skills. He is no longer a child anymore. On another day at the music airport, Yuri advises him to eat regular meals at least 3 times a day, vowing to write each morning and night to check in on him. She insists he lock the door tightly, warning of how daunting the world has become. The protagonist reassures her not music to fret. Yuri insists he rings her if there's a problem. Cassian remarks he ought to say the same and promises that if she ever needs him, he'll come music flying straight to America. A tender smile is exchanged between the two. Yuri bids farewell, assuring him she'll give a call once she reaches her destination. Her flight ascends and Cassian simply silently observes its departure, a wistful expression etched upon his face. Later, when they reach Villezone, Driver clarifies the rules. Victory is claimed when a rival either gives up or can't continue. He must compete 3 times and earns credit simply for participating, so a loss won't cost him anything. It merely means missing the opportunity to challenge the boss reigning over Villezone. Cassian grumbles about the excessive noise, insisting they just get started already. With a smirk, Driver asks if Juek is ready, and over the music, the woman affirms her readiness. Moros advises Cassian to keep his composure, warning him not to get riled by his foe's jabs, but Cassian pays this no mind. Double Blade muses, wondering whether nimbleness or brute force will dominate in the end, his own nimbleness or Jax's sheer might. She was far more than a brawler relying on being tough. Possessing exceptional close combat skills and a sculpted, trained body, she was no ordinary fighter. Music intelligent and strategic, she always knew how to turn the fight in her favor. Relying on quickness alone would do no good against Juek. She was the exact kind of adversary he least wanted to face. Driver announces that if that's the case, then the contest ought to begin without delay. Juek rushes forward, declaring that there's no sense in delay. Let the fight start in earnest. At lightning speed, Cassian casts shadows, anchoring his rival where she stands. He declares his dominance from above. Juek scans the area, confused about his whereabouts. Double Blade shouts he's directly in front of her, but by then darkness has already taken over. Cassian pivots fluidly, legs tensed for the assault. His quick blow delivers a kick to Juek's head, leaving her unconscious. Driver lets out a weary breath while the villains look on in disbelief. Juek lies defeated before them. Cassian urges them to send forth the next contender. Blackhand is incredulous. Is it possible? With a single move, he felled Juek, one of the most formidable, resilient adversaries Villezone boasts. Cassian urges them again to discontinue the hesitation and proceed, while onlookers question what sort of being he could be. The protagonist remarks that anyone else eager for a lesson can step forward. Crush asks if his friend won't fight, but just then a knife whirls toward him, embedding itself in the earth. Cassian raises his gaze. Red-Eye warns him to keep his ego in check, since conquering one foe means little, for he, the greatest tracker in all of Vilzone, is now his challenger. Meanwhile, in another part of the district, someone remarks on the impossibility of it happening. Concerns of torrents of blood are unnecessary. Music no one expected much from him to begin with. Over the phone, one inquires about the Gadam district, and the reply comes, tinged with music, that its downfall is imminent. Just trust what I say and wait, no matter what befalls, the promise will be kept. Suddenly, the battlefield erupts with a blast. A volley of arrows zoom through the open air. Cassian weaves through the assault with astounding agility, as Moros observes that his arrows follow their target as if guided by fate itself. One arrow quickly hones in on the hero, but with a swift leap, Music he just manages to avoid it, causing the projectile to embed itself in a nearby structure. Red-Eye proclaims that he's captured his quarry, that this chase ends here. He readies his bow from his vantage point above Cassian. With deft movement, he releases a vortex of rapid-fire arrows at the protagonist. Cassian does his best to shield himself with an arm. The blast rolls through the district like a thunderclap. Music Red-Eye returns to the rooftop, uncertain if that was enough to subdue his opponent, having anticipated fiercer resistance. Yet a spreading darkness quietly materializes behind him. Red-Eye spins to see what looms in his wake. There, standing eye to eye, is Cassian, advancing Music and declaring that it is Red-Eye who has become the quarry. Red-Eye raises his hands with a declaration of surrender. Accepting defeat, he recognizes his loss. Music the protagonist asks by what means, and Red-Eye confides that for a marksman, there is no victory when the fight closes in. Cassian questions if such a trivial reason really means he is quitting, but the villain responds with unwavering conviction. After all, he never foresaw ever facing him like this, yet he did so at Driver's request. Overhead, the villain's drone continued to document the confrontation. Cassian inquires about it, and Red-Eye expresses his wish for no one to sustain harm during this trial. Presenting a DSB to the protagonist, Cassian asks about its purpose, and Red-Eye shares that it is a desire repression patch worn by every villain in the district. Place it discreetly behind the ear and it becomes flush with the skin, vanishing from notice. Cassian Music recalls seeing imprisoned villains receive these as injections, though never before as an adhesive patch. He cannot help but wonder who would invent such a thing. Music Red-Eye cautions him that his last contender is likely Blackhand. Although subject to his feelings and quick to ire, Blackhand possesses an unexpectedly charming side, so Cassian should not treat him with undue harshness. Cassian muses on this, conjuring memories of who Blackhand was. Meanwhile, within the arena, Blackhand wavers, indecision flickering in his gaze. Crush wonders aloud who emerged victorious, while Doubleblade opines that the archer found himself handicapped, unfit for confrontation in duels. Though his strength could lay Juek low with a single strike, Blackhand retorts that it was nothing but luck's favor. When questioned about his true conviction, he falls mute. Crush chimes in, wondering if he's admitting that one-on-one victory escapes him, and proposes a contest with 3 against 1. Juek simply wonders aloud what issue could possibly be found in that. She points out that even lions use teamwork to hunt buffalo, while Blackhand protests at their audacity. With a harsh exclamation, he claims he'd never volunteer to form a team with someone felled in a single strike, declaring himself no communal lion but a solitary Siberian tiger. Juek remarks that jesting was not her reason for arriving and states that this so-called trial was a test in title alone. The fate of all 3 was simply to act as offerings to ensure that boy's brilliance. Blackhand inquires what nonsense she's delivering, and Juek urges him to wait until her explanation is finished. She reveals overhearing Driver at the Paradise Bar, boasting about transferring the leadership role to the boy. Blackhand explodes in disbelief. Music yet Juo insists it is not a mere prank, advising him to consult Yu Chai-ha, who was present to corroborate her claim. That scoundrel simply cannot accept such news, finding it inconceivable. Juek retorts that the youth is but an obscure malefactor, ill-suited to bear the noblest title within the villain's stronghold. She questions whether it doesn't infuriate him to see the boy bask in so much special favor from Driver and insists they must now determine if they will join forces to effect change. Double Blade looks at her, confused, and seeks clarification of her proposal. Ju Music allows a sly smile to play on her lips. She then declares she's gathered allies who share her view and that unity brings strength. Meanwhile, aboard Yuri's aircraft, a stewardess presents her meal, bidding her to savor it. Yuri Music muses that there's still quite a journey ahead. Gaze drifting through the window, she breathes out softly, pondering whether Kang Woo's needs are being met. Meanwhile, Cassian munches on a sandwich at the tournament. Reedy offers it, intending to restore his vigor. Cassian repeats the thank you, music at which Moros raises a suspicious brow, hinting at an ulterior motive. The hero explains that Jeff always cautioned him, trust not those whose kindness seems excessive. At that moment, footsteps sound nearby. Blackhand, fuming, approaches the protagonist. Cassian remarks quietly, looks like he's my opponent after all. Yet Blackhand is demanding answers about what he's done to Driver. The hero, unfazed, is baffled music and the question is repeated with urgency. Suddenly, Crush launches a back attack, his hammer smashing into earth as Cassian leaps clear. Looming from behind, Double Blade brandishes his knife. Cassian perceives this, snaps back, and his punch lands instead. The foe thinks for Cassian to react thus in chaos, the feat astounds him. He then withdraws, steadying himself with a fist pressed to the floor. Cassian's lips curl into a knowing grin as he remarks they couldn't top him alone, so in their frailty they multiplied, charging in as three. But from behind, an object approaches, a barrel hurled by Juek. Cassian sidesteps, evading neatly, and is taken aback by what he spies below. Juek calls out that they are not merely a group of three this time, clenching a fist, ready to strike. The intoxicated battering ram collides with the protagonist's stomach, driving breath from him. Elsewhere, Driver observes that quite a bit of music time has ebbed away. He wonders aloud if the youth fares well, and when Crow assumes this refers to that black duck, Driver answers that the boy lacks a proper villain moniker. A woman beside him feigns envy over his focused thoughts. With flirtatious energy, she lifts his chin, entreating him to offer her his attention instead, promising dutiful affection in return, while Driver's mind still spins in search of a worthy name. A new presence arrives, Red-Eye, declaring that the targets have been found. He notes how truly entwined they are, an inseparable affection always holding them together. Driver mentions that his work today was well done. Crow inquires after the black duck, and Red-Eye questions whether she's referencing a certain individual. Driver proceeds to switch on his glasses. He expresses surprise, prompting Crow to ask what has occurred. Still wordless, Driver continues using his glasses, keeping a watchful gaze fixed on the structure where the music clash is unfolding. A girl is sending messages toward Dirty Dog. As the explosion's aftermath echoes, she gazes out at the neighborhood being consumed by it. Cassian is hurled against the wall by the impact, jaw clenched as he struggles to recover. Crush approaches with a warning, declaring that it's now his chance to retaliate. Bracing himself on the wall, Cassian seizes his weapon and lands a solid punch right onto Crush's face. Music Blackhand rushes forward, shouting insults and damning his foe in outrage. Cassian sidesteps the attack, swiftly getting behind Blackhand. Then, clutching his hair with claws, he uses it to pull him closer for a knee strike. The hero presses onward, connecting a punch to his adversary's face. Crush storms in, calling him a worthless jerk, but the protagonist's music kicks the foe away. Suddenly, another threat appears from behind. Sensing Juek's barrel again, Cassian deftly avoids it, swinging her upward off her feet. He catches her by the hair. Juek clenches her teeth in response. Mustering his strength, the hero powers his knee, landing a blow to her chin. Music Blackhand watches with deep exasperation, muttering that this arrogant challenger is far too formidable for them to imagine defeat at his hands. Meanwhile, Crush checks whether Cassian is still among the living. Blackhand wonders aloud from what abyss such a foe could have emerged. Cassian's gaze shifts across the scene. The B-rank pointer states that Cassian appears formidable, while the C++ class hammerboy insists that such adversaries make the chase all the more invigorating. Moros notes their unceasing arrival, but the protagonist retorts that pests will always remain pests. Pointer bristles, offended by such a label. The villain's eyes grow wide with dread. Anxiety makes him quake as he painstakingly withdraws from Cassian's overwhelming aura, until another opponent bursts forth, shouting, "He belongs to me." Introducing himself as Order's steadfast guardian, the imposing B+ rank Iron Mask enters the fray. He moves ahead, hands poised firmly at his shoulders, announcing that he shall uphold justice and safeguard calm within the Ville zone. Cassian music slips easily past the threat, merely inclining his head. He raises a question regarding the scene's strangeness. Hammer Boy lunges with his hammer, firing a nail and declaring through a scream that the hunt has commenced. Cassian gracefully veers past the projectile, darting in zigzag fashion toward his rivals. Pointer stands between him and his companion. Hammer Boy demands him to stand aside, yet Pointer refuses to take orders from him. As his fire-tipped spear glows in his grip, Pointer claims it's time the protagonist experience the warmth of his blaze. Cassian conjures his own flames within his claw. Amazed by the oncoming midnight blaze, Pointer wonders what essence might produce such fire. Crush wonders aloud if that wretch music is a sorcerer, while Juek questions their idleness. She declares that it's the moment for their unique assaults. Pushing forward with her cask, she channels every ounce of strength into it. With a blast, music she curses the hero to oblivion. Cassian summons the darkness into his claws, molding a sable blade that effortlessly cleaves the barrel in two. Crush then uses the split rim as leverage, leaping ahead with his hammer poised. Cassian forms another murky blade in his grip and surges onward, shearing the hammer clean with his blade of shadow. Next music he twists back, launching a formidable kick into Crush's midsection. Blackhand, beholden to the unfolding turmoil, is gripped by dread, pondering the true nature of this foe. He notes the unyielding certainty within him. A troubling suspicion creeps in, perhaps they are not the hunters after all. Just then, a mysterious force emerges, binding the hero. The villain lurking behind proclaims his victory. Music he remarks he always knew it had come to this. Enter Binder, a villain of B rank. Cassian is momentarily taken aback, but Binder insists resistance is vain. He warns, Cassian will never escape, for it is not only music the flesh ensnared but ambition itself too. As siblings in shadow, any attempt is futile. Yet Moros calls out Cassian's name. Binder then declares he'll keep him imprisoned in unyielding agony for an hour and 49 minutes, ample time to feel utter torment. Meanwhile, the other villains close in, swearing to end his life. Pointer threatens to skewer him like a roast. Cassian simply seizes the spear with his bare palms. All those present music are paralyzed with disbelief. Iron Mask bellows that in the name of his district's peace, he will eliminate this music traitor and proceeds to mete out his grand verdict. Juek barges forth too, acknowledging the team's efforts as he announces his blow meant straight for Cassian's abdomen. Momentarily, Cassian's sense fades. Crush too delivers a strike to his back. Rallying villains bellow to end his existence, roughing him up. The hero's music body begins to crumble, succumbing to their onslaught. Ultimately, Blackhand deals the last blow with a sharp kick, denouncing him as insignificant. Kangwoo jeers, doubting this was his best, mocking his lack of strength. He taunts further, "Your body is mine, was this truly your all, you're fit only for oblivion." Yet deeper currents of energy surge within Cassian as he chants his own name inwardly. His overflowing power astonishes every foe, Moros among them visibly startled. Cassian's form brims with even greater reserves of force. High above, other villains advance towards the edifice. Crow frets, wondering if her concerns are unfounded, pondering what might possibly derail. Driver chimes in, wishing all might unfold without setback on this day. He remarks that excessive casualties would certainly become troublesome. Suddenly, everyone senses a surge of Cassian's presence. Thoroughly astounded, Driver remarks things are spiraling badly below. Juek demands answers about the music impossibly intense force, echoed by the rest. They come face to face with Cassian, who stands wreathed in an overwhelming storm of pitch-black energy. Binder, in alarm, remarks that Cassian is managing to free himself. Juak steps forward, insisting there's nothing to fear. They only need to defeat him for good. Yet the hero shifts his gaze, severing every thread, and from the torn filaments, shadowy blades sprout upon the earth. In a single sweep, all of Binder's ties are cleaved, sending the adversaries skyward before gravity claims them. One keen-edged blade nearly grazes Juak. A similar fate threatens Blackhand and Crush as well. Every villain is scattered across the ground, while Cassian alone stands undaunted. Juak, underscored by the melody, exclaims, "That was wild." The protagonist roars that if he is to satisfy his vengeance, he cannot possibly fall in this place. Driver enters the structure while Crow, to a musical undertone, inquires whether this is the infamous Dark Horse. The villain remarks next, indicating his Mana count has now surpassed 2,000. Amazed, Crow reacts as Red Eye declares it's unbelievable. Those with over 2,000 mana join the ranks of Disaster class. Crow demands what action they'll take, knowing disaster may follow if left be. The strains of music surround Driver, who remains impassive, simply observing. Moros' voice rises, urging Cassian to maintain control and questioning if he will truly succumb to wild impulses. He further presses, "Where is that fighting spirit you cherish so deeply? Rouse yourself," accompanied by music. Calmly, the hero answers that his senses are clear. He lifts his chin with a haughty air, querying the spirit if it ever doubted he could regain composure after being overtaken. His strength of will was never so fragile. His hand finds the DSB point and applies pressure. The background music signals Moros' quick recognition. He prioritizes that this composure might owe itself to the contraption Red Eye entrusted to him. Driver notes the regained control, though Crow admits some disappointment. This was a rare chance to witness unrestrained strength. Appraising him closely, the foe scrutinizes the protagonist through his spectacles. His energy reserves, once immense, now read as less than half their former measure. He ponders quietly if peak power only emerged when self-control faltered. Moros' inquiry with musical echoes follows. Is he all right? The hero assures he merely feels a little faint, then fixes his gaze and wonders aloud if his adversaries wish to renew their assault. As tension resonates in melody, Juak bites back with a disgusted insult, though Blackhand interrupts to proclaim their surrender. Their defeat is declared. The woman bristles, demanding what authority he has to make that call. She contends that he himself should be the one to yield now, for according to her, he stands as the defeated. Without a word, Blackhand clenches her collar tightly. Moments later, his fist meets her with a shout. That's enough. He felt the sting of shame for having singled him out, and now she refuses to acknowledge her loss. He wonders aloud if she truly wishes to drag their already tattered pride even further into disgrace. Jua hurls an insult at him, calling him a scoundrel. Blackhand remarks that if she's so eager for a brawl, she should challenge the boss directly, just as Driver makes her entrance. Jua utters his name sharply. Drawing closer, Cassian listens as Driver proclaims his triumph, commending him for succeeding in the challenge. Cassian fixes his eyes on her and inquires if this outcome is finally enough. Driver affirms enthusiastically, declaring that he is now one of their own. A joyful smile spreads across the protagonist's face. He celebrates the fact that he now belongs with his newfound kin. He declares his intention to rest peacefully and soon drifts asleep in someone's embrace. Moments later, at Philadelphia International Airport, the stars and stripes of America are unfurled. Yuri inquires if he managed to sleep, but is only met with silence. She guesses it must be time for him to rest. Meanwhile, a man brandishing a sign of welcome beams kindly at her. Recognizing her manager instantly, she notices he keeps grinning as they ride together. Introducing himself as Sean, the senior manager, he offers to take her directly to her lodgings. Yuri expresses gratitude for his help, agreeing to the suggestion without hesitation. She's curious about the character of the person running the hotel. Sean describes the manager as quite captivating, though he's away traveling, so it will be 10 days before they meet. But she should not hesitate to reach out with her queries. Yuri simply gives thanks, proclaiming her intent to give her utmost from here onward. In years gone by at the HC orphanage, Cassian declares his desire to become a hero like Jeff. The boy beside him asks if he hadn't previously declared he'd one day make a splendid villain. Cassian replies that it was just youthful nonsense. Jeff calls Cassian by name and inquires about the reason behind his dream of heroism. To this, Cassian says he finds inspiration in him, fighting always in the name of justice. Jeff remarks that Cassian is still just a child, instructing him to pay close attention. He tells him that not every hero is truly aligned with righteousness. Cassian wonders aloud if they still stand opposed to evildoers, and Jeff assures him they do. Cassian then questions whether perhaps villains stand for justice instead. Jeff pauses thoughtfully, replying that justice belongs to the one who stands and fights for it. He advises the boy never to place blind trust in what seems apparent. What he judges to be right may, in truth, be the opposite. So, Cassian ought to strive to become one who genuinely champions justice. He offers the boy a gentle smile. Moros calls out to the protagonist, bringing Cassian back to awareness. He finds himself again in Driver's warehouse, surrounded by implements and gear. Cassian promptly asks about his location, prompting Moros to comment on his return to consciousness. Cassian wonders if Moros has been calling to him, but the ghost merely looks perplexed. At that point, Driver addresses Cassian, remarking she'd imagined him sleeping, but it was good to see him finally awake. She had a warm smile for him, while Cassian's confusion lingered. Meanwhile, within the Korean Republican Lampa's branch, Woo Chan makes his way to a certain room. He softly raps 3 times on the door, congratulating his dear Sunbai on such prompt recovery from the hospital, but finds De-woong collapsed in utter discouragement on the floor. Woo Chan proceeds to illuminate the room, then asks why it had been cloaked in darkness. De-woong softly acknowledges his student, then confesses he cannot sense the essence of his fabled bear and tiger sword. Music Woo Chan inquires about his meaning, and the protagonist bellows that it feels as though the blade has been utterly drained of its spirit, its vital energy vanished. Music, such a phenomenon, is entirely foreign to him, and he's convinced that Blood Rain has tampered with it in some way. Woo Chan merely gazes at him, astonished. Meanwhile, at the Paradise Bar, Driver praises it as the finest eatery in the V-Zone. To mark his success in passing the assessment, Driver insists on covering their meal. Cassian wonders aloud if there's truly nowhere else for them to dine. Driver remarks that patronizing this place helps Chiha's business prosper. Moreover, he assures that all those responsible for the mess during the trial have already faced consequences. Cassian's thoughts wander back music to the ordeal. Uchiha serves a dish, announcing it is complimentary. Cassian is caught off guard by the gesture. He asks Music whether this establishment is habitually so lavish, but Chiha clarifies it specifically to commemorate his recent appointment as leader of Jidam district. Music Cassian expresses doubt, and Driver elaborates that he overcame a lineup of fearsome villains unaided, and had even conceded victory to him. The hero adds he has previously turned down the chief's role, disliking burdensome duties. Driver counters confidently, vowing to tackle all tedious tasks for him while providing a steady income. Cassian muses that he would merely act as a symbolic chief, but Driver replies he envisions him truly leading the V-Zone. They require a person who wields such presence and might. Cassian remarks that people aren't likely to accept him readily, and may even find him monstrous. Driver, however, insists that regardless of the voices in opposition, his trust in Cassian runs deep. Music, and no argument will dissuade him. He firmly believes he is making the correct decision. As Cassian listens, his mind drifts back to their conversation from that momentous day. The hero Music regards his glass of orange juice in reflection. Driver notes that Cassian has yet to claim a villainous moniker, and reveals he's been pondering it. Astonishment, the hero rematerializes just behind, simply states, alerting him to its new position. Cassian. Aiming Cassian has a sharp cease to elbow at exist. Henceforth he will be the antagonist bent on vengeance, solemnly declaring that his criminal title shall remain Cassian. Somewhere else in the district, Cassian observes the panorama laid before him. He reflects on the day Yuri boarded the airplane. Moros had questioned whether anxiety about his older sister filled his thoughts. Cassian answers that he doubts anything terrible will befall her. Moros follows up, revealing he's never asked before, but is curious if Cassian sought power as his reason for coming to the villain zone. Cassian concludes that having strength is worthwhile too, particularly when surrounded by skilled partners. Still, before that, it's crucial first to surpass his limits. With every step, his power expands, adapting ever more swiftly to his gifts as he relies on the music. He speculates whether this stems from the latent potential of a catastrophe-level villain and notes that thanks to it, he's even acquired dual attributes, a phenomenon foreign to him till now. With that, he lifts his hand, stretching it toward the heavens above. He declares that with thorough training, he can take the initial stride toward achieving his vengeance. Moros remarks that it might even be possible to find the infamous exterminator sword that Jeff was seeking. He wonders aloud if that had truly slipped his memory. Meanwhile, in the present, Cassian surveys the view of the district and muses that he's truly assumed the role of chief in Seoha Arts High School's notorious villain zone in the G-Dam district. Within the first-year classroom, a cluster of girls exchanges whispered rumors. Na-Yun sips her strawberry milk, then pointedly inquires about the subject of their attention. The girls say they're discussing the latest villain zone news. One recognizes the protagonist, guessing that must be him. Rumors swirl among the girls that he is the newly appointed chief of the villain zone, but despite his tough reputation, Wu Chan would still defeat him with a single blow. Na-Yun quietly debates whether he's truly the chief after all. Elsewhere, Crush suggests brushing the matter aside because it's bothersome. Blackhand questions who created such a dire list ranking villains best avoided in the G-Dam district. Crush accuses him of being upset he wasn't featured, though the villain quickly contests this. Another companion mentions Blackhand was actually ranked 6th. Double-blade objects, and Blackhand protests indignantly that the ranking is unfair. This particular villain then voices curiosity about why someone would opt for Cassian as their villain moniker. Crush admits he noticed that himself, recalling Cassian's admired status as a remarkable hero. Blackhand cannot believe that name truly exists and Crush affirms his fame, but the villain dismisses dread for heroes, fixating instead on wanting to pummel that guy with his fists. Music Doubleblade then discloses that he passed away only recently. He was fatally stabbed due to killing an ally. Crush supposes this is why there's an odd superstition: if you borrow the name of a fallen hero, you may gain new powers. Blackhand, incredulous, wonders what nonsense this is and scoffs, while Crush insists numerous villains indeed believe and make use of it. Look around the villain zone and such cases abound. Blackhand Music queries whether this fool is counted among them, though Doubleblade suggests they skip the brawl since they've only just escaped the punishment room. He considers if the matching names could just be a fluke, or if by chance Music the Whisper, a newfound power, might carry undercurrents of fate. In the villain zone's basement training grounds, Cassian emerges post-shower, expressing a sense of renewal. Moros observes that Cassian put in twice the effort today, voicing concern whether this pace is bearable for him, yet Cassian reassures him that he trained well within his own ability. Music he notes his present condition is quite different from days past. Cassian considers that his body has altered ever since he unleashed that frenzy. Moros ponders this briefly. Meanwhile, Driver knocks and asks permission to step in. Cassian promises he'll come momentarily as Moros remarks he's outside his villain persona at the moment. He accompanies Driver, who wonders whether he really spends all day training, but Cassian urges him to speak directly. Driver announces an urgent gathering, and the protagonist clarifies whether his participation is needed and what the meeting concerns. But Driver reveals that several members who were locked away have broken free. The escape alone proved troublesome, yet their destination caused greater concern. It was none other than Boxen's villain district. Inside a building, a villain bemoans botching everything, barely managing to recover it yet still appearing in person, unashamed. Music she now bore the full evidence of her defeat upon her battered face. Another woman notes that following the power shift of the district's ruler, Music the once proud Driver is irrelevant. Just then, the villainist fixes a cigar between her lips and declares that they should allow her just a week to seize control of the G-Dam district, revealing herself as the S-rank Barracuda. The Driver reveals that nearly 400 unsavory characters inhabit the Gadam district. Out of that number, about 100 are true villains, while the remainder some mere idlers or those without homes, intermingle amidst the discordant music of rough lives. Because these individuals keep company with wrongdoers, their behavior has strayed from the usual ways, especially among the Villain Zone's council. The driver continues, concerning Jack and Pointer, who managed to get away from the discipline room, it's now known for certain they are in alliance. After fleeing, they set out toward the boxing Villain Zone. Cassian concludes that there exist 4 villain districts in the city of Seoul and wonders aloud what lured them to that particular one. The driver explains the two groups are far from friendly. Those adversaries have been biding their time, searching for an opening to strike at Gatham. Even after receiving several courteous warnings, they carry on, undeterred by any interventions the music of the city brings. Cassian inclines his head, seeking confirmation. Is Barracuda the leader of the Bone Villain District? Red Eye describes him as an S-rank opponent, quick-tempered and confrontational, a fighter through and through. The driver tells everyone not to grow anxious just because he's S-rank, for he mainly relies on equipment to match his peers. Barracuda boasts fangs he values above all his trusted weapons, and rumor tells he wields an authentic magical crystal. Cassian ponders over these notes while the driver insists their side still has numerical advantage. But their concern isn't solely the inflexible figures. The real challenge rests with the upper echelon fighters. Red Eye admits that if those opponents truly harbor plans to challenge them, they surely have strategies in mind. Still, the driver maintains that while their reputation is well known, no attack can happen without a valid pretext. They simply must weave a convincing motive, then strike without restraint. Crow argues the reputation for incompetence that stalks the villains of G-Dam is to blame, so they'll, accompanied by music, take decisive initiative themselves rather than leave it to the collective. The driver remarks that incidents like these have occurred before but asserts their odds remain strong, for they possess an asset of value and dependability hidden from most eyes. Driver inquires about Cassian's plans, who answers he was simply returning home. With midterms approaching, his focus was on study. Crow voices his skepticism and Red Eye appears baffled. Meanwhile, elsewhere in a cozy establishment washed with melodic sounds, a young man remarks that it's been half a year since their last meeting, suggesting such gatherings shouldn't be so rare. Wu Chan responds, saying he never brushed off any messages. To this, the young man retorts he never took the first step to reach out. Amid drifting music, Kuji Ho, who belongs to the support division, observes that autumn has already settled in and graduation steadily approaches. He wonders if Wu Chan will step forward as a full-fledged hero or instead attend college, prompting Wu Chan to admit the former is most likely. Ideally, he wishes he could journey here and there, enriching himself with a tapestry of experience. Jiho, as the ambient sounds float by, remarks that if such was his goal, he ought to have enrolled directly in a training academy instead of a traditional school. Wu Chan explains it was his father's desire guiding his decision. His companion silently fixes him with a look before broaching the subject of becoming an S-rank hero like his late father, but Wu Chan interjects, asserting that alone would not suffice. He seeks the honor granted only to the world's 30 top contenders. His aim is to rise as a hero of the First Order, even among the background harmonies. Pausing to drink his coffee, Wu Chan declares confidently that such status will enable him to seek vindication from those who wronged him. Jiho considers this briefly before noting that outside of his astonishing 2 hours and 3 minutes magical power, what truly matters for first-class status is how well he can fight. This ambition is nearly unattainable for someone of the support category like himself. Yet Wu Chan responds with a reminder that their group already includes a support role. Still, enough with the self-pity. If anyone could, he's the one who might reach the title of top-tier hero. Remember, he managed to capture the A-ranked assassin Blood Rain, an astonishing feat in itself. The memory is vivid for Wu Chan. Jiho remarks that, following the ordeal with Blood Rain, many students have come to admire him as an inspiration. Wu Chan glances at his phone, explaining he has to go see his sister and asks Jiho if he'd like to accompany him. Jiho mentions it's been some time since he last saw her as well. Elsewhere, the protagonist drifts past a cafe, driven by his search for a particular book. In the Boxen District's enclave of outcasts, Barracuda marches toward the disciplinary chamber. A voice there calls out, looking for his cherished toys and suggesting a game of hide-and-seek, but as the entrance opens, the speaker demands to know who it is. Barracuda calmly answers that he's the one who confiscated the toys. The man threatens that if Barracuda is taunting him, he'll take his tongue as punishment. Moving closer, Barracuda promises something new to play with, lifts the man's chin, and tells him he'll discover more upon reaching the G-Dam district. The man reveals it's his birthplace. Barracuda wonders aloud if memories of Driver have faded. The man asserts that Driver led the G-Dam villain enclave, pronouncing him a friend so dazzling he'd make you want to weep. Barracuda coolly informs him the leadership has shifted. Unfastening every restraint, he instructs them to journey to G-Dam, hinting at intriguing amusements awaiting. As the man departs, that unnerving smile hasn't left his lips elsewhere in the city. Non calls searchingly for Minyoung, remarking she had been right behind moments ago. She inquires if her friends waited excessively, but Minyoung reassures her, having arrived just a moment earlier. Non then confesses that Minyoung's call from a strange number had caught her off guard. Minyoung shares that, after her release from the hospital, she changed her contact and longed to leave the past behind entirely. Negotiating the streets together, Na Yun muses her brother waited at the library, leading them to arrange their meeting there. Minyoung then produces a present, declaring it is meant for Wu Chan since she's the sort who kindly reciprocates goodwill. Later on, within the town's library, Non inhales the fragrance of an aged book. Minyoung questions her actions, and the girl explains her fondness for the scent. She admits an affection for the aroma of freshly bound books as well. However, she's there with purpose, a particular volume to purchase promising a swift return. Minyoung asks about the book she's searching for and Non answers it's a recipe book that her sibling desires. Her companion's curiosity flares, exclaiming upon finding it first. Just as her fingers near the book, Kang Woo intercepts it, sliding it off the shelf. Non protests, "Pardon me, I spotted that first," to which the protagonist retorts that his grasp landed before hers. Peering downward, he suddenly recognizes Non, recalling she's the girl from before. He's pleased to see she appears well now. Then he offers the book to her. Kang Woo heads off, messaging Moros that there's no need to fret, as more copies are bound to be available if they just speak with a staff member. No one finds herself at a loss for words. Meanwhile, across the city, the fair-haired young man trains on a punching bag, proudly declaring he's set a new record. The bespectacled friend calls him a weirdo for this. Kai-hyun grumbles about the dullness, prompting the other to ask what he's doing. The young man sighs that there's simply nothing exciting around. Then, someone arrives, questioning if he seeks a thrill. Kai-hyun rises and wonders aloud who this music might be. The newcomer announces he's come bearing a unique present, motivated by the amusing sight of Kai-hyun's search for entertainment. He asks why he appears so uneasy, and Kai-hyun realizes who the villain is. Music, the stranger inquires if the idea displeases him, adding he's free to turn it down. As the young man attempts to refuse, the villain dismisses his protest with a grin, saying denial isn't entertaining in the least. He carefully sets the gift upon his head, stating with confidence it's bound to please him. Kyoan slips into unconsciousness for a moment, then a face appears on the gift box. Music, the villain cheerfully claims he's transformed him into an adorable plaything, suggesting they enjoy some toys together. He reveals himself as the A-rank artisan of toys. At the library at that same moment, Non announces her arrival, calling for her elder brother. Yuen wonders aloud why she waited there when they could have just met at a coffee shop. Non explains that she wanted a particular book and finally found the straightforward cookbook she needed. Yuen remarks he only asked about it in passing and expresses his gratitude, but Jiho adds that it's his first encounter with such a book in reality. The aspiring hero checks if Minyoung has healed, and the girl offers her thanks. Na Yun says she has brought a present for him. Music, it's her token of gratitude for his recent rescue. Meanwhile, an employee nearby offers apologies. The book he happened to mention has already been purchased and is out of stock. At that moment, Kang Woo hears something and turns. Jiho asks what's going on at 2 hours and 7 minutes past. The ground trembles across the city. Wu Chan quickly understands the situation. Kang Woo spins around as well. They promptly shout for everyone to take cover as shards of glass rain from the library's windows. Wu Chan anxiously asks what just happened. Ki-hoon, with the television for a head, awakens, his look peculiarly intense on the scene. Music in the district inhabited by villains, Driver secures bolts in place while mumbling about upcoming midterm exams. He ought to be preoccupied with his studies when a flash of urgent news interrupts him. Announcements arrive that people resembling monsters and adorned with holiday boxes have suddenly appeared around Gadam's shopping area. Authorities think an assault may be underway. Music now, we go direct to our reporter at the location. Driver mumbles about a gift-wrapped box. Crow admits he was tuned into the broadcast at just the right moment, certain that only that scoundrel could be behind this. That wild troublemaker who vanished after his humiliating defeat 3 years back. Within the wounded halls of the ruined library, the band of champions steels themselves for imminent battle. Jiho, unsure, questions what they are facing. Is it an enemy? The creature, bearing a package for a head, only grins wickedly in reply. Suddenly, a whimsical melody plays, and from the chest of its container, presents spring forth. A collection of plush creatures leap from atop its head, rushing towards the defenders. Wu Chan lands a blow on one. Jiho follows suit but keeps his abilities in check. Meanwhile, another toy attacks Non from behind, releasing orbs of bubbles. The girls shriek beneath the strain of lively tunes until the plushie is abruptly struck in the face. With a swift motion, Kang Wu dispatches it using a book as an impromptu weapon. Non quickly expresses gratitude. The main hero gazes down, realizing it's nothing more than a charming plaything surrounded by soft harmonies. Their foe lets out a ferocious scream, further unleashing a barrage of plushies. Jiho observes that even more are on their way. Wu Chan promises to tackle the threat, telling Jiho to remain in support. Wickedness must be rooted out in its entirety. Yet Kang Wu calls for restraint, questioning if he truly intended to take the life of an innocent bystander. Kang Wu clarifies, stating the alleged civilian is merely a marionette led by unseen hands, a victim ensnared by evildoers. Jiho puzzles over this, doubting how such knowledge came to him. Kang Wu shares the vital maxim for every hero: to first protect innocent lives, urging prudence and a steady mind. Wu Chan muses inwardly, curious how Kang Wu seems so versed in the simplest heroic tenets. Kang Wu raises his voice, insisting Wu Chan stay alert, for every heartbeat is crucial. Just then, the monstrous adversary surges forward, fist cocked, ready to strike. With nimble steps, Wu Chan evades, weaving swiftly back. Jiho urges his companion to keep his distance. Channeling his inner force, he ponders, if this being crowned with a box is not truly a villain but a mere pawn disguised as a bystander, he'll use his strength to heal. With resolve, he unleashes his restorative gift upon the troubled soul. As the magic begins to work, the gift box fades from the captive's features. Kyun is slowly reclaimed by his humanity. Jiho comments in surprise, unsure if his attempt succeeded. Minyoung exclaims that a pa is truly impressive. Kung Wu announces he was correct. The transformed figure was not their enemy. Kyun's true form is restored. Jiho observes the change, acknowledging the unique ability at play. Non questions his intentions while Wu Chan grows quiet. Meanwhile, throughout the entire city echoed by whimsical melodies, puppet creatures donning giftbox masks left havoc in their overlapping footprints. The stuffed monsters continued their rampage, menacing ordinary citizens. Somewhere distant, the puppet maker gloats that joy fills every street. Reflecting briefly, he notes one of his playthings was ruined, determining it's time to deliver a lesson to the culprit. As he searches for the saboteur, the figure known as Driver appears, blocking his path, declaring that his journey ends here. The craftsman of toys faces him, lips stretched in an expectant grin. Driver reminds him of a past warning: if he disturbed the Gadam district, there would be consequences. The villain, dismissive, claims he neither remembers nor cares to heed such admonishments. His expression twisting with anticipation, he expresses how delighted he is for their reunion, longing to again witness Driver's brilliant gaze, as he is determined to steal it for himself. With wild laughter, he hurls himself forward, relentless and full of mischief. Driver merely retracts his weapon before wielding it as a spear for a forward assault. Music, he repeats his remark about the marionettes, clearly irritated and far from pleased to encounter this, as it threatened to push him into genuine anger. Meanwhile, in the box and villain sector, news flickered on the television, prompting Barracuda to remark that it simply wasn't enough. The opening needed more spectacle and splendor, so those ruffians from G-Dam district could properly enjoy the show. A figure of the A-rank Rockhand asks why they don't simply storm ahead and obliterate all obstacles. A B-rank Frost Demon declares he'll take whatever is offered, provided he's allowed to cover everything in ice. Barracuda insists he couldn't care less, but underlines that the operator must remain untouched since that's his objective. Music: the woman behind him claims she'll take the one with the richest flavor. The A-rank smoker wonders aloud if he can have crow, mentioning he's been yearning for poultry lately. He's curious what smoldered crow might taste like. Someone behind him wants to know if picking anyone is permitted since their sights are set on Cassian, identified as the A+ rank Black Ghost. Music Smoker observes it's intriguing that a man has drawn his attention. Barracuda replies that he's expressing interest in the new commander. He gives permission to do as Black Ghost wishes, to which Black Ghost expresses gratitude. Smoker inquires about the plans for the toy maker, but Barracuda nonchalantly responds that disposing of him was always in the cards. His purpose was only to launch this festival. A broad smile spreads across Barracuda's face, for this music was the occasion where G-Dam would finally be within his grasp. Elsewhere in the metropolis, a puppet donning a present-shaped head dashes ahead, screaming. Music: it charges at innocent bystanders, flinging soft toys, but soon new abilities intervene and strike it atop its head. Jiho declares the rescue mission is over. That made the music third safe civilian. Now, priority shifts to capturing the villain before harm escalates. Jiho warns that pursuing alone would be reckless. Music: he's already summoned support, best to wait here. Yet Wu encounters that hesitation will only spur this villain's madness. He must be the lunatic from recent gossip, the one they call the toy maker. Wu Chan remarks that he's seen the man's record in G-Dam's log of criminals before. He was ruthless, ever willing to act for his own amusement. In another quarter, Kang Wu's eyes are fixed on his phone. Moros asks Music if anything serious occurred. The protagonist confirms driver had contacted him. The cause of the ordeal was that character dubbed the toy maker. Moros notes that's rather troubling. Kung Wu announces he'll head out, though Moros immediately remarks the crowd is too thick to sneak away. But the protagonist claims he only needs to slip free. Non asks his destination, and Kang Wu responds by saying he's off to his residence. The girl cautions him that setting out alone is perilous, with Minyoung concurring since her elder brother is a hero. Moros concludes escaping won't be as straightforward as presumed. Kang Wu admits this music is quite a challenge but detects something amiss. A villain is hurtling down from above, clutching a gift in hand. Swiftly, Kang Wu rescues both with a bound, warning them of the imminent danger. He wheels around, catching everyone's attention, and the toy maker praises his swiftness. Wu Chan dashes to join his sister, only for the toy maker to plant his feet and declare that they are the culprits who damaged his toys. With a mischievous tone accompanied by music, he announces he'll give them a proper lesson. Jiho raises a skeptical brow and Wu Chan counters that the toy maker was the one who approached them, not the other way around. In response, the toy maker beams, delighted by their recognition, and promises to bestow a reward upon them. He promises an exclusive gift meant just for him, boasting about its rarity as he breaks into a run. Wu Chan readies a fiery burst in his hand, but soon the toy maker halts. The protagonist unleashes his flames, however the adversary merely smirks, flicking his tongue before tossing his peculiar gift right through the burning blaze. A stuffed fish emerges, suddenly summoned and gathering a jet of water to unleash at Wu Chan, leaving him with no choice but to snuff out his flames for defense. Non, her worry punctuated by melodies, cries out for her big brother. Wu Chan is slammed against the wall. The toy maker rushes forward, exclaiming he's captured his target, devolving quickly into a fit of mad laughter. Wu Chan inwardly curses the absurdity when suddenly a cell phone clunks against the toy maker's head. The antagonist whirls around to demand who dared disturb his entertainment, but his face glows due to a coming blow. Wu Chan channels fiery power into his fist and lands a direct hit, calling out for him to take that. The toy maker is launched away, tumbling violently before crashing onto the pavement far down the road. Baffled, Wu Chan questions aloud what just happened as his gaze lands on the cell phone. He notes the phone rings a bell because it belongs to him. Kang Woo asks if he caught that moment and Moros agrees, clarifying that Non had hurled the phone to aid her brother. The central character, overtaken by music, marvels at the arcane signature, realizing that her magical awakening is close at hand. In that instant, all the heroes there come to a shared understanding. They all recognize one thing: the toymaker was merely acting as a puppet. Suddenly, uproarious laughter echoes from down the street as the real toymaker, unmoved, chides them for their unruliness, remaining unfazed even as his toys are ruined. Yet he brushes it all off since he's stocked with plenty more playful creations. At the Lampas branch in South Korea, Do-wung bursts in, explaining hurriedly that he had to visit the restroom. One of his co-workers grumbles that things are a mess, accusing his absence of putting Woo-chan in danger and being a source of chaos. Our hero notes Sunbai has procured a new car. She impatiently admonishes him back into focus and tells him to just get inside. In a different setting, the hero relays the alarming events taking place at G-Dam's central district. With each passing moment, the devastation will only compound, for this neighborhood suffers from a volatile and shifting populace. This individual is the A+-ranked Ham Jae-sun. Da-wung wonders if the toymaker has indeed returned as foreseen. In turn, Jiun retorts that it ought to have been clear by now. His associate Kim Woo-chan made the report, requesting backup. Do-wung inquires if he's currently stationed alone, but Jae-sun replies that, fortunately, the aspiring hero Jiho accompanies him. Thus, Do-wung concludes he must reach out and forewarn them against reckless maneuvers. However, Sunbai interjects that she's already instructed them to keep low and avoid action until the team arrives, emphasizing that impulsive choices, reminiscent of the blood rain case, could bring further complications. By any measure, something simply doesn't add up. This whole episode feels shrouded in suspicion. 3 years had passed without a trace of that man, and now, without warning, he resurfaces. Unpredictable as ever, he was elusive before. It's likely he just wearied of concealing himself. And this scene is not limited only to Seoul alone. Unrest such as this is sprouting in every region across the nation. It gives the impression that someone is deliberately inciting hostilities, with territories now turning on one another. Should there exist some cunning soul seeking dominion over all the villain districts, he would be the sole beneficiary of this strife. Do-wung reports that Woo-chan's phone is out of service, and Jiun instructs him to attempt another call. The hero laments Woo-chan's silence, suspecting that misfortune has befallen him. Over in a different corner of the city, a drone soars overhead, with driver surveying from above. As a drone glides past as a whimsical gift from the toy maker, who giggles and wishes that everyone relish these moments and play without limits, even at grave risk. A shower of such devices rains upon the assembly of heroes by his hand. Woo-en dashes forward, smashing each one with his bare knuckles before flattening one of the last. Woo-en dashes forward, smashing each one with his bare knuckles before flattening one of the last surprises. Woo-en is stunned while the toy maker announces his victory by awarding him a peculiar trinket, stickies. Music, you're on the verge of becoming the most remarkable toy yet, he taunts gleefully. More projectiles target the youth. Kang Woo, impatient and tense, yells at the blue-haired companion to intervene, urging him to wield his powers to assist Woo-chan. Jiho swiftly comprehends the urgency, but the toy maker insists their strategy won't succeed this time. Then, Jiho invokes his power of mending, dismantling the toys as they melt away, while the frantic toy maker demands, distressed, for him to cease spoiling his beloved creations. With an assertive elbow strike, Woo-en intercepts him and sends the villain reeling into a wall. Again, he cocks his fist, but the toy maker deftly slips every attempt until seizing Woo-en by the throat with a triumphant, "I have you now." Music, this is an item of utmost rarity. You really ought to feel privileged at the prospect of joining my collection, he boasts. Abruptly, a blade of shadow slices across his hand while ebony cords appear behind, binding his arms as he gasps, baffled by these fresh tricks. Woo-chan harnesses the flames gathered in his fist again, striking at the foe and rebuffing, "Now, who's the toy in this situation?" He then flings the villain far off, branding him a scoundrel. The toy maker collapses into unconsciousness. Jiho shouts for Woo-chan, who turns his gaze to the shadow blade, recalling it as the hero's own. From atop a nearby skyscraper, Driver continued to observe the scene unfold. Casually scratching his face, he chooses to feign oblivion. Back at his residence, Wu Chan is absorbed in television footage reporting about disturbances in the G-Dam commercial area the prior afternoon. The news anchor inquires if it's verified that the toy maker orchestrated the mayhem. Jian remarks that amid the catastrophes he unleashed, quite a few suffered injuries. The interviewer pursues the source behind such villainy haunting G-Dam, pressing a heroine for her perspective. She responds that the area was intended to demonstrate that order is achievable, submitting that, statistically, cities assigning zones for villains are shown to exhibit fewer crimes than those without. He affirms that the uptick in nefarious events in Gadam is mainly rooted in lax oversight within the villain's quarter. Extending thanks for her participation, the journalist voices his conviction that reconstruction and stricter policies are urgently required. Were it not for the heroes stepping up in the midst of peril, the toll would have been far graver. He acknowledges having learned that the apprentices Wu Chan and Jiho were especially instrumental. Music he wonders aloud if she shares the belief that these promising young heroes, now the pride of Lampas in South Korea, truly merit their new-held renown. Jian mentions that whispers are spreading about possible reductions in the length of their apprenticeship. Wu Chan powers off the television, musing that Dong declares he's pleased with his partner. Music Wu Chan reflects on every moment when that troublesome villain stepped in to rescue innocents, pondering the reasons behind such actions. Furthermore, he checks his mobile. The man known as Cassian resurfaces in his thoughts, his very inspiration. Elsewhere, Music Aroma notes the situation has become utterly tangled. She nibbles a cookie resting in her palm. Wang explains there exists a dedicated music faction scheming to breach the area and stirring up the press. Driver questions whether any of the other territories have given their opinions, music only for Wang to confirm their continued silence. Eventually, this destiny would have befallen them as well. Driver clarifies, in essence, knowing this was orchestrated puts them in the tragic role of the first to suffer. Music he wonders aloud if G-Dam seemed like such easy prey. Wang offers his assistance if need be, though Driver retorts that Wang is merely music boasting about fulfilling a duty expected of him, especially since they possess an unbeatable hidden asset, and Wang is curious why that power was absent. Remarks that his presence is undetectable, prompting Aroma to throw scorn on that troublesome individual. Music Driver remarks that at present, their ace is preoccupied with midterm exams. Their trio voices disbelief at this turn. Up atop Gadam High, Kang Woo assures Yuri by phone that all remains in order. He adds that his meals and cooking are on track too, encouraging her to focus on her own well-being. Yuri insists that her concerns are justified, given last night's incident in G-Dam. Curious if he was involved, she presses for details, and Kang Woo assures her he was at home preparing for upcoming assessments. She observes that midterms are on the doorstep and the protagonist confirms they begin today. He adds that up to now he's truly put in his all. Yuri reminds him that true results stem from wholehearted effort, just as Wu Chan steps up behind him. Kang Woo excuses himself, claiming he must use the washroom and promising to speak later. He then confronts Wu Chan, who utters his name calmly while at Yuri's eatery in the U.S. Yuri wonders if the exams have made him anxious and regrets not mentioning the calming pills tucked in the drawer. Music just then, Sean addresses her, explaining he's found her since he couldn't contact her earlier. Yuri explains she was chatting with her brother and inquires whether something occurred. Sean clarifies his purpose isn't related to that but brings tidings that the general manager has returned from traveling. He was so keen on seeing Yuri that, foregoing his own homecoming, he headed straight to the restaurant. Inside the manager's quarters, Sean offers a warning as he swings open the door, stating his entrance. The man gazes out the window absorbed in thought, until the moment he realizes their destination has been reached. Sean announces that he's brought along manager Yuri, prompting the girl to ask if that refers to the general manager. Offering a courteous introduction, the man presents himself as Vincent, expressing his delight at making her acquaintance. Meanwhile, high upon the rooftop, Kang Woo turns to him and inquires if there was something he'd like to share. Wu Chan gently shuts his eyes and expresses gratitude for the previous day, acknowledging that without Kang Woo's intervention, things could have ended in disaster. The hero is left questioning whether his sole purpose for coming was simply to give thanks. Wu Chan remarks that during such a dire crisis, Kang Woo remained collected, evaluating both situation and environment before getting involved decisively. He suggests there's much to learn from Kang Woo, and as a further gesture, hands over a bag. Kang Woo curiously contemplates what could be inside. Wu Chan explains that it's a gift from his sister as a gesture to repay Kang Woo's support the day before. As a side note, he mentions, apart from himself, she has never given any other man a present before. Acquiring this was no small feat, he informs, so he sincerely hopes it is well received. He then makes as if to depart over the subtle strain of music, and asks offhandedly whether Kang Woo happened to notice a man clad in black during yesterday's tumult, but swiftly decides against pursuing it, instead encouraging him to do well on his midterms. Maro notes that there is something inside the package, and Kang Woo responds that the only way to know is to open it and take a look. He is taken aback to discover it is merely an ordinary cookbook amidst the dangerous Jidam district's villain zone. The driver strides beside Crow, remarking, under the lingering notes of music, that soon they must erect barricades there. Hammerboy confidently offers to handle it, prompting driver to remind him that the structure needs substantial strength, and that a trench should be excavated before it. Dirt Dog, curious, asks about the required depth for the digging job. With a hint of reluctance and over the ambient music, Crow wonders if those boxing fellows are truly on their way, to which Driver assures they are, and hence his utter commitment. It appears they longed for an audience to witness their declaration of battle. Driver then inquires about Cassian's results in his midterm exams. As Hammer Boy empowers his weapon and Dirt Dog activates his expert digging skill, Cassian asks what's happening, and Driver explains that he is fortifying their position in case of imminent foes. He notes that in just over 2 hours, with their crew numbering a mere 13, meticulous preparation could be key to triumph. Driver wonders aloud about Cassian's destination over another splash of music, and Cassian replies his intent is to meet Yu Cheha. Driver asks if Cassian is off to enjoy a daytime drink, while Crow suggests, midfield music playing, that perhaps it would be more suitable to share a bottle of wine alone at her residence. Inside the Paradise Bar, the manager is polishing a glass with silent concentration. Uch queries if Cassian is interested in purchasing fine magic stones, questioning the quantity desired, though Cassian simply requests the entire stock. The vendor skeptically asks if he possesses the money for such a bounty, reminding that payment is expected promptly and promissory notes are not acceptable tender. Cassian wants to know the inventory count. Uch ponders this, saying he was being fully transparent, emphasizing the legitimacy of his bank card. He presents the goods first, politely requesting his company down into the depths of the warehouse. Cassian finds himself before a vast stairway that leads below. Within the cavernous space, Uch reveals the contents of a waiting crate. He proclaims that he holds 5 superior magical stones within his grasp. Cassian muses aloud that the quantity is less impressive than he had hoped. The sum was already indicated on the exchange slip. As is well understood, such items bear a hefty price, and the finest quality ones are even rarer and dearer. Cassian declares his intention to buy the lot, suggesting a reduction in cost, to which Uch firmly refuses. The hero mounts an argument in protest. Annoyed, the merchant finally consents to sell the entire stock at the arranged price, but insists on immediate advance payment for the full amount. Cassian requests that he send over his banking information. The day before, he had revealed that knowledge of a certain secret Swiss account, registered in Cassian's name, belonged to him alone. Moros inquires about the existence of an emergency stash. Kang Woo Music responds that Jeff had recommended he establish such an account as a precautionary measure. He adds that he has since accessed this fund, which takes Moros by utter surprise. The reserve contained a truly staggering amount. Kang Woo reflects that, had he foreseen these events, he would have stowed all his fortune there. Moros probes about his intended use for these resources. The main character states he intends to invest the wealth in pursuits that will enhance his power. Yuchai observes that conducting this business has been delightful, urging him to return whenever he pleases. He reaches for his mobile phone, curiosity stirring as he wonders who this individual might be, securing such a significant deal in a single exchange. Elsewhere among the city streets, Minyoung wonders aloud about what to eat, and Non admits her fondness for a mango parfait. They settle themselves, and soon their parfaits are brought to the table. Minyoung comments on its appeal, while Non exclaims over the abundance of mango topping. She then inquires if her friend recalls where their rescuer from yesterday went. Minyoung admits she does not, he likely just headed home. Non raises her spoonful of mango parfait thoughtfully. She begins to recall the sight of Kong Woo heading away from them. Minyoung repeatedly calls her name. Noticing the spoon drop, she asks in concern what's wrong. Suddenly, realization dawns on Non. She understands he must be the one. Non announces her need for the washroom and Minyoung directs her to the end of the hall. As Non moves down the hallway, an unseen observer, even a black phantom, watches her from afar. At the basin, the girl cleans her hands, relieved that she is certain neither Minyoung nor OA noticed anything unusual. A curiosity flickers. What consequence would follow if she were to expose his true self? Out of nowhere, a surge of mystical energy coalesces. Music Cassian materializes quietly just behind her. Non demands the reason for his presence, but Cassian remains wordless. Meanwhile, Minyoung grows restless in the restaurant, trying to contact her delayed friend. All at once, a desperate shriek splits the air from somewhere behind them. The crowd scatters in terror, exclaiming a villain is among them. Cassian marches forward with Non in his arms. Minyoung calls desperately to her companion, instantly noticing the immobility that has overtaken her. Cassian inquires if she is acquainted as his companion from the world of melodies. She is instructed to go and relay a message to her brother. Inform him that he must come to the antagonist's territory in Jidam district if he wishes to reunite with his sister from their harmonious sphere. Later, in the alleys of Jidam, Blackhand surveys the chaos and demands to know what on earth caused this scene. Doubleblade observes that all this has been set in preparation for the moment the boxing boys launch their assault. Blackhand suggests they make the first strike instead. He, still influenced by the rhythm, proposes whether they should proceed alone, yet Doubleblade halts him, warning not to move another inch as a cunning snare lies hidden beneath their feet. The young man inquires further, and his companion cautions that Dirt Dog has been boasting tirelessly about his elaborate efforts. Crush spies a distant figure approaching and wonders aloud what it might be. Guessing whether that could possibly be Kim Woo-chan, Blackhand admits unfamiliarity and questions if this fellow is a rogue from the boxing district. Doubleblade exclaims to all that the newcomer is in fact a hero and has become quite prominent online as of late. A voice shouts that he's a psyker. Launching the strength within his fist, a rhythm in itself, he urges his allies to step aside, declaring that such a hero oughtn't tread here and ought to prepare himself, for vengeance will be delivered for his bold incursion into the rogue zone. Wu-chan gathers his energy, carried again by music, insisting that they clear his path for he seeks his younger sister. However, all at once he falters for 2 hours and 26 minutes, suspecting that he has wandered into a trap. A sudden detonation follows swiftly. Blackhand reels in confusion, questioning the cause. Next he trips and plunges into a dark hole. Crush demands clarification. Who among them is being called a fool? Within Cassian's private dojo of practice, the youth completes the process of absorbing the mystical stones. He inspects his palm, watching as energy takes shape before him. Moody notes with a musical undertone, asking how Cassian fares after consuming 5 of the finest mana gems, but Cassian replies the sensation remains unchanged, urging him to employ the appraisal vision for analysis. His statistics materialize before his eyes. Cassian observes out loud that his mana points have reached 860, barely scratching the surface of a B-rank stature. Moros, carried by a subtle musical lilt, notes these crystals are losing their former value, yet states that a truly extraordinary stone would mean an entirely new level. Cassian says, should he continue consuming crystals endlessly, it would be preferable to engage in more rigorous training rather than indulging further in these treats. Moros reflects privately, believing Cassian will soon be pleased to discover how his mana surged to astounding heights the previous time rage seized him. Cassian scrutinizes his stats, puzzled to see a figure beside the particular skill title. Maro reminds him he wielded both shadow blades when entering combat with Blood Rain. At that moment, to the backdrop of music, a knock interrupts him. The driver proffers an announcement: someone named Kim Woo-chan wishes to see him. Cassian pivots with intrigue at this news. Meanwhile, above the villainous district of Boxen, a droning machine glides through the sky. Through forgotten hallways, Black Ghost strides forward, bearing neon draped over his shoulder. He steadily lets his aura unravel. In the central hall, Smoker idly wonders if it signals the guest's arrival. Right then, Black Ghost materializes in the eyes of his superior. Barracuda's lips curl into a subtle smile. Black Ghost declares his intention to secure her in the dungeon, with Barracuda responding in agreement. Smoker wonders aloud if his plan involves pressing in and backing those wretched villains into a corner. Barracuda replies with a grin that adding pressure only ups the excitement. Soon it'll be splashed across the headline's music. Cassian, rumored villain, accused of abducting a renowned hero's kin. Such a tale would lure the media like nothing else, drawing them as famished beasts in search of a meal. Barracuda goes on, claiming the incriminated outcasts will in turn be shunned and left defenseless, precisely the moment their strike in the villain's territory will commence. Nestled among the city's architecture, Cassian offers a concise rundown of their troubles, while Wu-chan remains bound beside him. Music: he restates they framed him for abducting his own sister. Cassian's memories flicker with thoughts of Non. He protests, insisting such barbaric deeds are beneath him. The driver chimes in, affirming it's true, Cassian couldn't possibly be involved. Not content to merely seize someone, their enemies went further and laid the blame on him too. Those scheming folks from Boxing played music another vile card, trying to bring them ruin. Wu-chan clenches his jaw in frustration, tells Cassian to stop fibbing, then yells, desperate for his sister's whereabouts. Driver proposes saving the confrontation with Boxen for later. What matters now is sorting out this tangled mess. Cassian orders them to release Wu-chan, prompting astonishment among the others. The main character vows they'll resolve the confusion before anything else. All the while, Wu-chan music is grinding his teeth to dust. Eyes on the streaming drone footage, Driver says it's lucky they had the foresight to set things up. Clearly, the blame lies squarely at Barracuda's feet. Just to hedge against reckless moves, he dispatched a surveillance drone to Boxen. Crow remarks, impressed on the clarity and detail. Cassian asks the identity of the man on screen, and Driver posits that it's likely Black Ghost. His unique gift lies in taking on new forms. The protagonist requests clarification, and his friend explains that Black Ghost transformed into him. Wu-chan notes the resemblance is uncanny. Cassian brushes it off, saying they have their target so they can deal swift justice. Wrongly blamed as the abductor, Cassian now faces Wu-chan clamoring for retribution. Music: if a mission to the Bokean villain sector is underway, he insists they'll join. Rescuing his sister is non-negotiable. Driver asserts they won't be venturing there solo, and Crow gladly commits to tagging along. Music: excitement dances in his friend's voice, likening the thrill in planning to the act itself, declaring Boxen will be raided by day's end. Suddenly, Blackhand and his entourage crash onto the scene with boasts and eagerness to join the foray. Cassian concedes, permitting their company but firmly noting there's one issue that must be settled first. Driver echoes this, fixing Wu-chan with a meaningful stare. The youthful hero is lost in a haze of confusion. Far off, the Levon Rose Hotel's presidential suite casts fleeting luxury around Wung, who marvels aloud at the resplendent gems. They really are exquisite. No amount of glances could attach a value. They appeared beyond pricing. Ade and Aroma groan that the man is incorrigible, dismissing him with disdain. Still, Wung is interrupted by his telephone's sudden ring. Fielding the call music, he grumbles that work consumes his time, but whatever news awaits, it quickly leaves him startled. The twins are taken aback by his presence. Wang shifts his demeanor, remarking that they are nearing their goal. He claims this is something he is well suited to take on, assuring them to entrust the matter to him. Within the villain sector in the Boxen district, Music: Kang Wu stands with arms folded. inquiring whether this is indeed Boxen's notorious enclave. The driver says that after coming this far there's no way back. Before heading in, they'll review the plan final time. He summons him over, instructing not to loaf around just because he's music inexperienced, ordering Red Mask to join them without delay. Earlier, Wu Chan clutches the mask. The driver urges him to put it on if he hopes to music accompany them. Wu Chan demands a reason. Cassian responds that a hero fighting with villains would seem strange, and the driver mentions it was originally a joke, but that's its current use. To avoid causing odd speculation, he'd music better go along. Their aim, driver declares, is to target the leadership in the Boxen district. Cassian sets their next objective to freeing the hostage following the leader's defeat, while Crow observes that their plan is a swift, forceful strategy with a lean team. The main character insists on finding the shortest path since striking suddenly offers their best hope of triumph. He proceeds to distribute tasks and positions. Driver will advance to scout. Cassian slips in to neutralize foes with Crow covering them. When Yuan asks about CQB, he adds that he'll safeguard the rear flank. Crow queries the meaning of CQB. Cassian moves to outline the team's purpose, but Blackhand interrupts, telling them to hold on. He grumbles about being left out of the discussion as though they are mere bystanders, as Crush proposes blasting forward through whatever's in their way. Cassian assures them their roles are specially significant. Until the mission is finished and the team returns, the pair must guard the escape path. They are cautioned not to get caught and to stay hidden until then. The two start quarreling over the arrangement, and Red Mask's mind drifts to he recalls Cassian saying in hero training that the true path to victory is in music's swift assault. He then reaches out, touching Wu Chan's head. He remarked that the boy possesses remarkable ability and would prove valuable so long as he remembered that trait. Red Mask muses that the villain was echoing the same idea. High above, the group readies themselves atop a building. Driver's drone soars to a security camera, then interfaces with it, taking over its control through his abilities. Driver states that targets 10 and 11 are now under their oversight. All of the entryway cameras are at his command, with Crow admiring how impressive that is. Cassian signals their incursion and they launch music towards the structure. Red Mask hesitates for just a moment before joining, silently wishing for his sister's safety and promising himself he'll hasten to her rescue. Within one chamber of the district, Non lay passed out upon the floor. Gradually, she regains awareness, only to discover herself trapped within a cell. Rising quickly, she tries to make sense of where she is and the events unfolding, but the instant her hand brushes the ground, her abilities flare to life. Music she realizes that figure wasn't truly him and ponders why she believes this, especially since she's certain she had lost consciousness. Sounds of approaching steps drift from the corridor. Outside, Blackhand music bellows in his rage. He declares they have no reason to focus on an escape passage, a sentiment to which Crush concurs. A real villain should just keep quiet and put everything on the line, they add. Double Blade chimes in, asking if it would kill everyone to show some silence. Their exclusion from the main plan, it turns out, stems from their complete inability to keep quiet. Music yet Blackhand persists, protesting loudly that the blame is not his. Double Blade muses that this man really doesn't use his head and remarks that before any of this, their leader has been acting a bit off. The rest ask for clarification, since earlier while describing the scheme, he exuded the air of a distinguished hero. Blackhand wonders what's meant by this, and Crush explains he wasn't spending those 2 hours, 33 minutes in a state of frenzy when suddenly, a loud voice music demands to know who's present. At once the villains identify Juek, while Crush worries their cover has been blown. A woman questions why they are in the Boxen district, asserting that there should be no real motive for their visit. Without hesitation, she sizes them up and proclaims they must be here to turn themselves in to Boxen. Blackhand challenges her on the idea of surrender, ordering her to stop blurting out nonsense. Just then, another voice inquires about the commotion as he draws closer. All at once the crew goes still, recognizing the man approaching as Rockhand. He claims he's never laid eyes upon these fools before and wonders if they are daring enough to attempt espionage in the open. Blackhand bristles at the insult, but Juek comments that they lack the skill for such a feat, and it's more likely they've come to yield. Blackhand retorts, demanding to know what nonsense she's spouting. His true goal was to conquer Boxen. Double Blade's thoughts dwell on how clear their instructions were, stay hidden and don't get noticed. Rockhand responds as such. Here to seize control of my district are you? Music it may be foolish, but I admire that audacity. Now show me if all that bravado outshines granite itself. Blackhand steps forward, music questioning what stone could matter, asserting his steel fists eclipse any rock in strength. Meanwhile, tucked in a quieter part of the building, Barracuda sat lost in tranquil solitude. His mind begins to drift back through memories long past. He recalls being in the G-Dam district, where a younger driver had inquired about merging every sector in Seoul and questioned his reasoning. Barracuda had replied that unity would mean they grew music powerful, ridding themselves of the constant need for secrecy and fear of heroes, hoping to unite not just local villain realms, but those all over the nation, perhaps someday the globe. Yet Driver cut him short, saying Barracuda ought to pursue such ambitions alone and not involve rambunctious upstarts just for his own benefit. Barracuda questioned his point, and Driver explained that he was merely trying music to evade responsibility like those who pick on those weaker. But regardless, he disagreed with the plan and believed the others backed him up. Barracuda muttered an insult at him, prompting Driver to brandish his tool as a warning against any foolish moves. The villain is taken aback by this revelation. His companion warns him to listen carefully or he'll find himself in real trouble. In the current moment, Barracuda rises to his feet. He soon becomes alert to approaching footsteps. A young woman says she's here with the latest update, prompting Barracuda to inquire about the situation. The girl with the bank-lensed glasses reports discovering a few pitiful stragglers lurking on the edge of their villain territory. She found 3 of them, all seemingly labeled at the B-rank tier. Barracuda wants to know who confronted them, and the woman responds, Rockhand. The villain interjects with music playing, observing that Rockhand should suffice alone, but finds all this quite suspicious. Regardless, he instructs her to investigate elsewhere, convinced those fools serve merely as decoys, certain that Driver wouldn't be foolish enough for such transparent schemes which would never fool him. He calls for Barracuda's famed fangs, certain that even if rival bosses from the villain district challenge him, he has no doubts of his triumph. Not against Driver either. He refuses to be mistaken for the man who previously suffered defeat. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the complex, Cassian wonders aloud if this is the core member's hideout. His arrival was swifter than expected, which Crow attributes entirely to her resourcefulness. Driver proposes that before entering, they ought to identify who presently resides in the building. His comrade puzzledly asks about it, and amid pleasant music, Driver exhibits a tiny, compact drone. The red mask, reflecting, acknowledges this individual as troublesome if he ever turned foe when suddenly a noise interrupts their thoughts. Yuen wonders if they've been found out, but Cassian sighs, expressing boredom with the situation. Resigned to necessity, he reiterates the strategy for executing a lightning-quick attack. Yet suddenly, a veil of smoke clouds their sight, enveloping the area in uncertainty. Red Mask inquires about the source, but a mocking laugh punctuates the air. Smoker announces her presence, demanding to know their hiding place. All turn, catching sight of her as she taunts that a bunch of stray rodents wander this way. Driver alongside Crow with familiar music lingering, yet neither recognizes this new adversary. Smoker remarks that since Driver answers to the boss, she'll allow him to stay, but Crow is her true encounter. Flashing a grin, the woman says, "Go ahead, I'll stay behind and deal with things." Amid the music, Driver asks if a conversation is what she wants, but Crow retorts, "It won't take long, trust me, it's a conversation for women only. Don't even think of butting in." Wondering if Crow could use a hand, Cassian hesitates, but Driver assures him that she's fine and enjoying herself, so the party pushes onward. Driver tells Cassian to let her have her fun and catch up with them later. Crow simply lets loose a laugh, her companion moving away. With the path clear, Smoker beams in anticipation, asserting that they can now treasure this chance for an intimate showdown. Crow repeats the term obstacles, insisting it's nothing but a fantasy on Smoker's part. They weren't in her way, they were her salvation, the ones about to deliver her. Now, with no one left to intervene, she proposes they savor this battle to its ultimate and possibly fatal conclusion. Inside the structure, cries erupt about uninvited invaders, and the command rings out to eliminate them immediately. Cassian races on with his cohort but quickly notices a swarm of villains surging to confront them. The B-plus ranked Shark Tooth bellows, urging his followers to crush these threats and show no leniency. Cassian, blending into lengths of darkness, whisks out of sight and dismantles the villains in an instant, landing a fierce kick that drives an enemy straight into the wall. Shark Tooth observes that Cassian is no lightweight but asserts his feeble strikes will fail to do harm, boasting of his body's unnatural resilience, and vowing to finish Cassian off with a single, predatory bite as his ability flares to life, music marking his intention to hunt. Yet the protagonist halts his advance, pressing a blade woven from shadows against the villain's teeth. He uses the wall for momentum, hurtling forward and driving his knee forcefully into his adversary. This results in Shark Tooth collapsing, battered and motionless, utterly insensible. The protagonist delivers an encore blow, grinding Shark Tooth's visage hard into the floor. Now the creature lies thoroughly defeated and senseless. Driver commends his actions, while Wu Chan ponders the depth of his incredible power. Gazing from behind his mask, he notes that this figure grows fiercer with every encounter. Cassian remarks, "We'll part ways here. The operator and I will go after the Boxen leaders, and Wu Chan, you should focus on rescuing your sister Music. She is the reason you came." Driver informs him that she's being held in a basement nearby. The drone already pinpointed her spot, so it ought to be manageable. Wu Chan tightens his fist with silent thanks, then darts away. Driver muses that he surely is a devoted elder brother. Suddenly, something elsewhere catches his attention. Music, a new squad of foes, has begun their assault from the rear. He tells the others to continue ahead, promising to handle these lesser opponents alone. Staying here too long will only lead to more enemies flooding in Music, and besides, he must also bide time until Crow completes her mission. Cassian responds he'll put his trust in him, and Driver reassures he'll return and rejoin them swiftly. Music, thus, he lingers among the approaching villains. Brandishing his implement, he announces there will be an earnest conversation to unravel what has transpired. Returning now to the battle, Smoker, her patience worn thin, declares she despises being compared to another and so conjures her sorceress breath from the beyond. Crow, with deft acrobatics, weaves between the attacks, evading impeccably. Smoker unleashes her lethal breath ability towards her foe. Responding, Crow twirls her staff, crows part their beaks and shroud the space in shadow, then she lets loose her crow's hide and seek, casting something forth. The smoky veil gradually recedes and at last Crow vanishes, fading away entirely. Placing her staff to the ground, she comments that feat was unremarkable, asking if there's anything worthier left to show, though instinctively she detects a new presence behind her. Whirling around, she expertly sidesteps an oncoming strike. One among the crows is unable to escape, cries out, and is ensnared by the blow. Crow spins at once to find herself Music engulfed in the murky smoke. Smoker remarks on her pitiable state, eerie in her misfortune. Inhaling even a wisp of that obsidian vapor spells doom, it will smother the blood's flow and burn the lungs from within. An unfortunate appearance for one who moments before seemed so high and mighty. Crow speaks, "You've committed a sin beyond forgiveness," and the energy in the scene becomes suddenly charged. The woman draws forth every ounce of her crow-like might, demanding how anyone could dare treat her beloved offspring, treasures bestowed by the dearest in her heart, with such disregard. Smoker, observing her waning powers, inquires how it is possible for a crow to wield such immense strength, confessing his bewilderment. The crow admits she's accountable and allows more of her power to break free. From this instant, judgment will be rendered by the crow's decree. Music, suddenly, a swarm of crows engulfs the woman's entire being. Meanwhile, deep within the second basement of the villain's domain, Wu Chan dashes headlong toward the chamber where his sister awaits. He muses that these people must have been purposely thoughtful, now placing him in their debt, yet he still seizes the control device and proclaims he's almost there, until a gleaming stretch of ice appears beneath his steps. Wu Chan halts in an instant. The ice demon sizes him up, admitting he doesn't recognize him and suspects he's from G-Dam. Waiting here was prudent, someone was bound to try and liberate the captive. Wu Chan sends flames springing forth, commanding him to keep silent and let him pass. Ice Demon remarks that this is entertaining, Their skills are in direct conflict, which pairs well with Spencer's confrontational personality. For him, a duel of fire against ice promises a truly captivating encounter. Then both of them unleash their full might. Outside, crows wheel through the air as Smoker writhes, beset by pain. Elsewhere, on the building's 12th floor, Cassian tightens his fists. He nears the boss's door and calls out for him to cease hiding and face him. Dreadful shadows unfurl over the ground. Black Ghost notes over music Cassian's impressive perception, stating a desire to meet him face to face, a foe who shares his own sinister talents. Cassian demands to know if he is responsible for abducting Non. Black Ghost responds that he researched Cassian, marveling at their concurrent rise to notoriety as villains. Engaging fellow criminals outside the bounds of the villain sector was unspokenly forbidden, yet he flouted convention and continued battling others. A threat to all, his death within this zone would draw no consequences, cementing his place as a ringleader in the villainy that is sanctified here. And Kang-woo ponders this revelation. The Black Ghost requests pardon for his biting manner, insisting offense was not his intent. He is truly full of admiration for Cassian. To be a villain is to court madness. In their world, lawlessness reigns. But as for himself, a cautious soul, overshadowed and withdrawn, such heights are beyond reach. Moros then notes that Black Ghost appeared to be delivering praise. Black Ghost, still with music, confesses he wishes to emulate Cassian, not simply walking in darkness but becoming the very embodiment of it. Moros wonders if he's just an obsessed admirer while Cassian dismisses him as deranged. The Black Ghost, once more with music, declares he's spoken enough. This talkative shift ill fits him, so let them commence. Cassian prepares for combat as the adversary points out his apparent prowess in short-range combat. Suddenly, several Black Ghost heads materialize. Cassian suspects illusions, unable to accept that all four forms could be actual. Black Ghost launches his attack. Prepare yourself, I'm coming. Real or illusory, Cassian asserts that he'll let his shadow unravel and clear these images. Being thorough is the only certain path. He summons his weapon of shadows. Black Ghost music is hurled backward by the onslaught, but before he can regain his bearings, Cassian is already standing face to face with him, closing the distance at blazing speed. With a sudden swipe of his claw, he nearly strikes, but the assassin dodges cleverly, retreating swiftly as if fleeing in fear. Cassian wonders aloud whether his opponent intends to continue lurking in the shade. The smoke swirls heavier around them. The main character notes his agility usually serves him well. Black Ghost considers that his adversary is far more formidable than he first believed, and faced with this reality, he readies a mysterious ability shrouded in darkness. He drifts toward the chandelier, smashing the last lamp keeping the room lit. The chamber plunges into utter blackness. Black Ghost attempts to strike from behind, but Cassian whirls around at once. The menace draped in music comments that he suspected as much. Cassian can't see flawlessly under the cloak of night. Cassian muses that his enemy's voice seems to rise from every corner at the same time. Black Ghost reveals, yes, both of them wield Shadow's music, but on the battlefield he alone is an authentic assassin. The last aggression was merely a test. Now he will bring him terror, a dread that blooms in blind, suffocating gloom. Cassian music, echoing the term horror, remarks that he knows not the bottomless despair of fading into a darkness where death feels inevitable. This unsettles Black Ghost music, for now Cassian has blended entirely with the shadows. He confesses that he once tasted death music, only to arise to a new existence. Recalling the youth's words, here below the Barracuda's hideout on the second basement, he claims kinship with darkness itself. Non's fingertips dance continually along the iron bars, troubled by the mysterious noises echoing around her. Outside, the elements war, ice and flames clashing. Wu Chan dives from each icy blast as heat radiates fiercely from every fiber of his body. Ice Music Demon releases his glacial torrent in a powerful spell, but Wu Chan weaves through every shot, steadily advancing. He laments, there's no clear opportunity. The fight weaves on with move upon move. His rival shows deep experience. Ice Demon concedes that Wu Chan is proving more skilled than expected. He had assumed impulsiveness, thinking he could finish things easily if challenged head-on. But now, since it's not that simple, the idea of freezing him fills him with greater anticipation. He inquires if igniting things fuels Wu Chan's fervor. For him, it's music no different. What thrills him is not sudden freezing, but rather the process itself. He favors encasing a limb or two at first, relishing the way fear seizes them as ice slowly overtakes their body. Wu Chan shatters free, branding him a music-loathsome foe, but Ice Demon questions this. Now that he watches closely, there's no rage in Wu Chan at all. He also recalls learning that the hostage's elder brother was said to be a psyker. Wu Chan retorts, demanding how dare he be measured against such filth. After all, he is Red Mask, the mightiest villain ever known to G-Dam. With that, he rushes forward, letting his searing powers burst forth. Music Ice Demon calls new shards into being with a wave of his hand, launching icy spikes at his rival. Yuan Simply Music smashes through their chill with his fists as he narrows the gap between them. Not long ago, Yuan wondered what prompted Cassian's request for a private word. The main character declares he'll cut to the chase, and Music makes his intentions clear. His intervals between strikes are drawn out. He means that Wu Chan loses focus mid-battle. He insists firmly on this point: you must render judgments and react more swiftly. Music Cassian unleashes a shadowy burst upon a practice figure. Wu Chan reels in astonishment. The main character explains that mastery lies in quickness. You mustn't allow opponents any window to recover, for a relentless music attack is the finest shield. Wu Chan ponders his reasons for sharing this insight. Cassian elaborates on how mana is condensed, heat is manipulated, and explosions are harnessed. Music noting that those gifted with abilities ignite power differently than those without. Regardless of being hero or villain, your purpose. Music revolves around growth. Then drawing nearer, he urges him to expand his thinking.